Lord, may you be glorified through our time tonight. By the end of our discussion, may we have a better appreciation of how mighty you are and how desperately we need you. Help us love you more. Help us live for you more. Help us love like you more. Please give us humility as we go into your word. Give us maturity as we discuss about just the stuff we're going to be talking about today. And thank you, God, for Sean and his willingness to lead us through this book. I pray that you will guide him and give him humility and a clear mind as he leads us through it. In your name we pray. Amen.
God, thank you for everyone here. Give us eyes to see, ears to hear as we go through your word. And let us set aside all distractions. And maybe leave this place with more love for you than whenever we came here. And it's in your name that we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right.
Also, I just got to say, I love your socks.
Oh, yeah, true.
Mac and cheese.
Alrighty. We're starting in chapter 15 today with Ezekiel, which means that we are not in chapter 1, which means we need to do a little bit of context. It doesn't have to be half an hour of context. It can be like 5 minutes, but...
Knowing us, it'll probably be half an hour.
Probably.
Yeah. I guess I can kind of just start us off a little bit. Obviously, I'm not going to address everything we've talked about in the last few weeks, but we're in Ezekiel right now, which is written by a guy named Ezekiel, and he is a priest, I believe, from the tribe of Levi, and he is in Babylon. But he's in Babylon, and he was taken there as a part of the first deportation, and so Jerusalem has not fallen yet, and so he is primarily talking to fellow exiles that are in Babylon, just outside of Babylon itself. And so the message has been largely about the impending fall of Jerusalem. Ultimately, that's what it's come down to. And so one big thing we saw was there was this big vision story where God showed up in this like chariot that was, different things were going on with this chariot, but it seemed like it was basically a portable temple where God showed up in his glory to Ezekiel and basically said he was going into exile with his people, but he had this vision where he took him to Jerusalem and showed him what was going on and what was going on in the temple, all the different idolatry going on. And there was this little story where, there was these figures in like robes who were going out in the city, and they were, protecting and destroying people. And there was just this whole thing going on of basically Jerusalem's fall. And then we kind of moved on in the last week where the focus was about the leaders, where a big thing that God took seriously was how the leaders were not protecting the people in the city. They were basically treating them like people to be preyed on, like souls to prey on, to where they weren't trying to protect the city against a siege. They were just there to feed on and scavenge the remains whenever it did fall, essentially. They were looking out for themselves. And honestly, that pretty much brings us into this week. But is there anything else y'all wanted to add to that before we start? There's obviously a lot more we can...
I think the only thing is just the fact that it's like we've kind of moved into, the second movement in Ezekiel's line of thinking here, to where chapters 1 through 11 really are all building up to that moment when God's presence leaves the temple.
Yeah.
Right? To where it's because there's a clear structure to where chapter 1 opens up with that divine chariot. It's almost like God, just royal entourage or something.
Yeah.
And you can almost view the remaining chapters as explaining how we got to that moment.
Yeah,
because chapter 1 is him in Babylon. He sees God showing up, and it's whoa, how did we get here? It's almost like the beginning of Spider-Man, the Tobey Maguire ones, where he's my story. You sure you want to know? It's almost like that's what's going on. Where we open up chapter 1, Ezekiel sees God showing up in Babylon, being what the heck? How did you get here? And then you get to see all the stuff that's going on, and then it culminates in those chapters where he is actually transported to Jerusalem. He sees God leave the temple. He sees God exit and go towards the Mount of Olives, and it's oh, okay. So that's why you're in Babylon now, because you're going with us into exile.
Yeah.
And then starting in chapter 12, we kind of go into this next segment where...
it's a lot of God pronouncing judgments on different facets of why the Jewish people are being punished, and targeting specific people groups, like the prophets who are lying, or using his name in vain when he's not actually with them, and the idolatrous elders, which was, what we got into last chapter, and the kind of things that God's really mad about.
Yeah.
Because we've talked about that the main image that we're supposed to have of Ezekiel is of like a watchman on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And he is supposed to warn them about like the danger of what is coming. But also, just as a prophet, he's explaining why that danger is coming. And so, now that we've seen, like, okay, this is going to be what, like, God is leaving Jerusalem, now we're getting an explanation for, like, why. And so he's just going to say, okay, idolatry, false prophecy. And then, like, chapter 15 kind of connects more to chapters 13 and 14. But once we get to chapter 16, it's going to be, like, just a broad condemnation of the people together and, like, how they have together rebelled against God. And so we're just getting an explanation for like we've seen what, now we're seeing why, I guess.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And there was also this theme of like, there was like lying prophets and like basically unprofiting visions, to where the whole kind of I guess not theme, but I guess the main indictment against these leaders is that they're useless because they're not doing their job, which is to be watchmen like Ezekiel is.
Yeah.
If they're not protecting the people, there's no point in them even existing.
Yeah.
Because their whole point is to protect the people.
It's not it's not that they're not just protecting the people, it's that they're like actively exploiting them for their own gain.
So they're quite literally doing the opposite of what they're supposed to do.
Like in the indictment against the prophets, it talks about these female prophetesses who like hunt the souls of the people and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And also we talked about, that's the reason Ezekiel is doing all like the poo bread and laying on the side and all that, to be the watchman and warn the people that like this is what's coming.
I guess out of context, hearing about poo bread sounds very weird, but the idea is that Ezekiel is a prophet who, more so than any of the other prophets, we've seen some of the prophets do stuff similar to this, but more so than any other prophet, he's almost like an actor who is like actually like living out these like theatrical displays for everybody to demonstrate like what God is doing, and it all falls into that category of him being a watchman. Like, the idea is he is trying to make them understand what is coming, not just through his words, but through his actions. So he's doing dioramas, he's doing like living like displays and stuff like that. So,
God could have just easily had Ezekiel like pronouncing these punishments and what was coming to the people of Jerusalem, or rather the people who were already in exile, who would obviously pass that on to the people who were in Jerusalem. But instead he had them like physically acted out, and what he kind of made Ezekiel the receptacle of what Judah's suffering is going to be like during the siege and everything that comes after. So.
Yeah, I think one last thing I'll say, because we talked about this one of the weeks where we kind of compared Ezekiel to being like a second Moses figure, and I think we'll even see that even more going forward. But I think that there's also an aspect of these things, like when you read the story of Exodus, as we read, as we've been going through, me and you, David. But like Moses starts off being very reluctant to take on the role that he's been given, but we've been seeing as the plagues happen that he seems to get more and more confident in his role. And I have a feeling that like things have gotten so much worse than it was back then, to where the things that God's having to put Ezekiel through they're much worse than what Moses had to do. But in both cases, these are kind of like signs that are meant to kind of strengthen Ezekiel's confidence in his role, I feel like. And so I imagine as we read on through the book, he's probably going to be getting more confident in that, because as we saw before, he was kind of pushing it back a little bit against God and his calling. But yeah. So he's also kind of like a second Moses figure in that regard. But is there anything else y'all wanted to add? You can probably hop on in.
Let's hop on in.
All right. Well, chapter 15 is only 8 verses, so I guess I'll just read the whole thing. Then the word of Yahweh came to me, saying, Son of man, how is the wood of the vine better than any wood of a branch which is among the trees of the forest? Can wood be taken from it to make anything, or can men take a peg from it on which to hang any vessel? If it has been put into the fire for fuel, and the fire has consumed both of its ends, and its middle part has been charred, is it then useful for anything? Behold, the wood of the vine is while it is intact, it is not made into anything. How much less, when the fire has consumed it and it is charred, can it still be made into anything? Therefore, thus says Lord Yahweh, as the wood of the vine among the trees of the forest, which I have given to the fire for fuel, so I have given up the inhabitants of Jerusalem. And I will give my face to be against them. Though they have come out of the fire, yet the fire will consume them. Then you will know that I am Yahweh, when I set my face against them. Thus I will give over the land to desolation, because they have acted unfaithfully, declares Lord Yahweh.
So, a couple things I want to point out here is that we, especially in the New Testament, we see the kingdom of God and the people who are a part of that kingdom as like a vine, right? We talk about grafting on, falling off, whatnot, and here it seems like that vine is being the people, well, at least the branches are being thrown in fire, and he's saying, well, if you continue to sin, you're like being thrown in a fire, and what good are you?
Yeah, so the branches imagery is a very common one that you see throughout the Bible to reference the people of Israel and stuff. But yeah, what I laugh about this is just like God basically, like, I know it's only 8 verses, but he basically gives an extended analogy just to basically say that Israel is good, or Judah is good for nothing.
Yeah.
Like that's basically his point. He's just saying like, yeah, y'all aren't doing diddly squat. You're like a branch that's burning on both ends and charred in the middle. Like, what can I do with you?
Branch. It's like the wood from a vine, which you don't usually get lumber from vines. It's not like made for building anything. And then what little you are given is like burnt up, and so you're only left with like this charred middle piece, which is literally good for nothing.
Yeah.
And that's what God is like basically saying Jerusalem is.
Basically, he just roasted them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is just kind of funny. Like,
before he literally roasts them.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's like it's the proverbial roast that is setting up the literal roast, which will happen when Babylon lays siege to them.
This is sort of off topic. I say sort of off topic, but I just like, I really like the rhetorical questions that get used a lot of the time. Where it's just like, a lot of the times when there's something that gets used as like an insult by God, it's just like a complete obvious satirical rhetorical remark. Yeah. Because like in mine, it's let me see if I can find it. It's like, I mean, literally just the whole paragraph. It's like everything ends in a question mark. But it's just like, I don't know, I just like the use of like rhetorical devices a lot by God in the Old Testament. Yeah. I think that's pretty great.
Well, yeah, and it's because they have no response. Right.
It's like there's nothing you can say.
Yeah, there's nothing you can say here. He's just saying, okay, tell me, what's better? The vine, like the branch comes from a vine, or the branches that come from like the trees in the forest? Well, obviously, it's the branches of the tree, like the branches that come from the tree in the forest, you actually have something you can use for. The branches in the vine, you usually just cut off and throw away. And he's like, okay, well, y'all are the branch of the vine. It's like, oh, crap. Like, it just keeps going. You're like, that's, yikes.
And then even worse, you're burned smithereens in the fire.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, and even though you escaped the fire is going to consume you. It's like, wow, great. We don't even have an escape. That's fantastic, actually. Not really.
Yeah. It also kind of reminds me, it's a different imagery going on, but in Jeremiah, there's the imagery of like the broken jar, to where it could be a bit of a different like emphasis there, but he has Jeremiah go in the middle of town, and he has him break this like jar, and he says, just so I will break this people in this city, even as one breaks a potter's vessel, which cannot again be repaired, and they again will bury in Topheth because there is no place for burial. And the whole thing going on there is that Jerusalem has basically become such like a broken jar that you basically can't repair it without, at the very least, like breaking it down and either starting over, or you'd almost have to just like reform it from like the clay itself. And I think that it's also kind of like, that's part of what's going on here, is that like the wood is almost so bad that like charred wood you can't really do anything with. So you either have to use it for fuel, or it's like you'd have to start over with like new wood. Yeah. To where God's saying like, the best thing I can do with you right now is like what you got here, I gotta burn it to the ground. I either gotta get some new wood, or I gotta like, gotta like start over. Yeah.
I remember us talking about the pottery imagery in Jeremiah, just because That's such a good like again roast. Like if he's comparing them to like just broken pottery, because like even archaeologists nowadays, like their favorite thing to discover is pottery.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the things. Like once pottery was broken, there was literally no use for it. Like a lot of other things in life, like if it was broken, you could do something with it. Whereas in the ancient world, if you broke pottery, you're like, well, this is good for nothing. So they would literally just bury it. And so the things that archaeologists find nowadays the most often is that like, yeah, there's just broken pottery. But the thing is, the pottery like there's usually designs and stuff that like are really helpful for figuring out stuff about history.
Yeah.
So it's like there's like this joke that's like, yeah, the fact that the whole like the significant thing to us nowadays is that broken pottery was so useless to people back in the day that they literally just buried it in the sand just to get rid of it. And that's useful it's useful to us, but like it really emphasizes the point that God was making in Jeremiah's time. It's like, you're broken. Like I can't do anything with a broken piece of pottery. Like that's what we bury in the ground. And so he's saying that that Jerusalem's going to be buried in the ground. I'm like,
yeah.
It's funny. Like we can appreciate that even better nowadays because like 2,000 years later, we're still discovering like pottery shards. It's like that's just funny to me.
Yeah. And honestly, if you're making the comparison again with like Ezekiel and Moses, it's almost like whenever God tells Moses, like, these people are so bad, I'm just going to, like, start over with you. And, like, obviously that ends a bit differently, but, I mean, times have gotten so bad now, it's where God can't really avoid destroying the people.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's kind of funny. This section, if we get through chapter 17, we'll end and start with, like, wood stuff. Which, for whatever that's worth.
Yeah.
What else in this chapter? Anything else here sticks out to you?
Well, the way that verse 8 ends perfectly sets up chapter 16.
Yeah, that's true.
I just like to highlight the connective tissue because so often we just make the mistake of treating these chapters like they're like their own individual things. Whereas we're the ones who centuries later added the chapter and verse divisions. Originally, it was all just one text. And I think that the chapter division makes sense here, but it very clearly sets up what follows afterwards because in chapter 16 he's going to use this imagery of like Jerusalem being a harlot and a prostitute. Well, chapter 15 ends, I will give over the land to desolation because they have acted unfaithfully. Right? Yeah. So he sets that up by being like, they have been unfaithful to me, and then he's going to move forward with the imagery of Jerusalem as a prostitute. So.
Yeah, that's true.
A little bit of a setup for what we're going to be discussing in chapter 16.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't really have much else to say for chapter 15.
It's a very good segue.
Yeah.
Well, I think the only other thing is just mainly just because we just read the book of Daniel, right? Verse 7, he says, though they have come out of the fire, yet the fire will consume them, and thus you will know that I am Yahweh. And it's interesting when you compare this to like the book of Daniel, because like keep in mind Ezekiel is writing this from Babylon.
Yeah.
And the whole story with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, we don't know when that roughly happened, but like we know that like it seems to suggest they were still pretty young when it happened, in which case it would probably be around the time Ezekiel's writing here. And so I just find it so interesting that on one hand, you've got God saying, here are these people who have escaped the metaphorical fire, yet I'm going to destroy them in fire anyways. And he's talking about Jerusalem. And meanwhile, in the very area where Ezekiel is writing from, there are these 3 kids who are literally going through fire, and God is saving them from it. Which is like, it's quite literally the opposite thing.
Mm-hmm.
And what's funny about that is that in both cases, God is demonstrating that He is Yahweh. Like,
it's true.
In one instance, the people who thought that they were saved, He is destroying. And then in the other instance, there are people who should be destroyed, but He is saving them. And I just thought that's interesting to where this one is metaphorical, kind of. I mean, technically, Jerusalem is going to burn. But with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, it's quite literal. They are like literally thrown into a furnace and preserved. I'm like, I just find that interesting. Like,
that's true.
It's mainly just my mind's on it because we just went through Daniel and it's taking place at like the same time period. It's like,
that's true. I hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah. To where I wish it was almost written a little bit like this was written a little bit later, to where we could say that the people in Jerusalem knew the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. To where it's like that would be even like richer, because then it would be like yeah, you'd like to think that I'm going to save you like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, but instead I'm going to make sure you get burned up in the fire. Like, that would be like an even deeper roast. But
yeah, that's true.
yeah.
I'm trying to find like a way to word this, but it's like I'm not really sure where I'm going with this thought, so apologies. But it's like the whole thing is like both of them prove that it's like, oh, this is both fires. It's like either way, it's both a proof that it's like it's from God. It's like I'm trying to think. It's like a very common thing that you see like a lot throughout the church. It's like there's, and especially like in the New Testament, where it's like I'm trying to remember, but it's like it's something that Paul uses when he's talking about like metallurgy, where it's like you purify like metals with fire. And it's like the whole thing is like with what you were with the 3 youths. It's like that's a fire from God, and it's for purification for them. Right. On account of the righteousness, where it's like with Israel or with Judah at the time, it's like it's on account of their immorality. It's one of judgment. It's the same exact fire, but it's because of the contents of their heart. It completely changes the context of it.
Yeah. Well, one thing that we've talked about quite often is just the general promise in Torah is that this is exactly what God was going to do with the people of Israel. He basically says, I'm going to glorify myself either way. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. So you like read Deuteronomy, and he says, if you obey me, then I'm going to bless you miraculously. And everybody will see how much I'm blessing you, and they're going to say, wow, Yahweh is the God of gods. But then he says, if you disobey me, and you violate the Torah, and you worship other gods, I'm going to destroy you tremendously. And everybody's going to look at how badly you get destroyed, and they're going to say, oh crap, Yahweh is the God of gods. And so the whole idea is that God says, I can either work through you or in spite of you. Either way, people will know that I am Yahweh. The question becomes, do you want to do it the easy way or the hard way? And so I think we do kind of see that here, to where Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they're the ones who were faithful. And so God miraculously saves them through the fire. But then you've got Jerusalem, who is being unfaithful. And so God is going to miraculously destroy them through fire. Right. And so it's like, it's basically exactly what God promised in Torah is happening. He says, I'm going to, in the end, my will is going to be accomplished. The question is, do you want to work with me or against me? And I think that's just a healthier way to remember, that is the purpose of, Israel as, a nation. To where, whenever you get to the New Testament, they kind of lost sight of that, right? And I think that sometimes as a church, we forget this too. But, it seems like the Israelite people have begun to think, oh man, we're just inherently special. And it's like, no. The reason you're special is because God chose you for this purpose. That is why you're special. And the question becomes, are you going to respond to God properly? And so, that's why Jesus and John the Baptist show up and say, God can make sons of Abraham from the stones. It's not you that's special, it's God choosing you that made you special. And I think that the reason I said that's dangerous for us as the church is that we do the same thing a lot of times. It's we think, oh shoot, look at us. We are so special and amazing. And we kind of do the thing that, you know the story with, remember there's the tax collector and the sinner? And the tax collector says, oh, thank God that I'm not it's the Pharisee. The Pharisee and the tax collector. And he's like, thank God, I thank you for not making me like the tax collector. I see so many Christians who are like, God, I thank you, you didn't make me like those Jews. And it's oh gosh,
so many people have a pharisaical mindset.
Yes, it's we're doing the same thing. The whole point is that, God has invited us to follow him and be part of his whole thing, but, he doesn't need any of us. His end plans do not rely on any of us doing, he's going to get it done whether we follow along or not. But he would love for us to join with him, because then it works out better for us.
Well, I mean, with what the tax collector said, I think that's, the words he said, all he said was just, Lord, have mercy on me. It's it was a lot longer than that, but the whole point is, it's with the tax collector, it's at the very least, it's if, on the whole thing, it's you, God's going to get what he wants done either way. It's just you can go along with it or you can go against it. And it's well, even in part of going along with it, it's you kind of have to recognize your own faults and just go along with it, but also apologize to God.
You just have to be grateful for the opportunity.
You have to be humble. Exactly, it's humility.
You just got to be I'm just happy to be here.
Exactly.
I was grateful to receive an invitation. This is great.
One's a free gift.
But anyways, sorry, I feel like I kind of took us on a tangent there, but...
No, you're good. I mean, technically, halfway there, there's actually a pretty good segue into the next chapter about the whole, forgetting that, they themselves aren't special, it's God that makes them special. That actually is going to be a pretty good segue into chapter 16.
That's true, because basically chapter 16 is him saying, let me make it clear here Like God is saying that I'm the one who's out of y'all's league. Like it's not, like, y'all aren't the catch. Y'all are a harlot who I'm chasing after, and I am the God of the universe. I felt like weird pointing at myself, and I was like.
And then I just wanted to add really quickly to what you said initially with the purifying flames.
Yeah.
You referenced like Paul. We had been through 1 Peter a while back, and one thing we talked about was like how it talks about like the testing of your faith is more precious than gold, which is destroyed in the fire. Like throughout the New Testament and as well as the Old Testament, like the idea is that like 1 Peter, he kind of compares like trials and persecution to flames, and so the idea is that the flames are meant to like strengthen your faith and test your faith. And the idea kind of would be also like the same flames, like they can kind of either be the flames of condemnation or the flames of like perseverance, to where it's all about like how you respond to hardships. Like the people in Ezekiel's time, the same hardships are facing them. The difference is that some people are trusting in God to save them, and some people are trusting in foreign nations and trusting in the temple and trusting in the fact that they're God's chosen people to save them. And so the flames that are going to destroy the people in Jerusalem are the same ones that are going to like harden and strengthen the people who trusted in God the whole time.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And so like that's kind of what you're saying, like the purifying flames, where like the people that are trusting in God, they're going to be preserved and they're going to be like refined into gold. Whereas the people who are trusting in everything else, they're the ones who get destroyed in that flame.
All right. Well, because every opportunity, so like there's like a priest that I was listening to talk, and he was like talking about like how he was doing a lot of prayer and he was struggling so bad, and like he just felt like he was suffering too, because like it's the middle of Lent, there's all these church services, and then he's like there's so much going on in his personal life, and it's like his prayer life is dry. And then he was talking to like his spiritual father, and then his spiritual father just goes, oh, thank God, because he's like you have like this is a flame, this is like a moment, you need to take advantage of this. And it's like the whole point is just like with what you said, it's like with Israel, it's like even though there is this fire, it's like in essence God is giving them an opportunity for repentance here, honestly. Because it's like even though it's like, oh, there's going to be this fire that goes after you, it's like I'm not gonna have the entire historical context for the people at that time, but it's like surely there were probably some people that saw that and would be like, oh, well, it's just the natural reaction would just be probably, even though it's a minority, would just be turn back to God, repent.
Well, that's like just a helpful rule of thumb in general. Like whatever, like in the times in your life whenever like everything's just going to crap, and like you're just and like going through all the bad stuff, like it always feels like it hits like at the same time, and like sometimes it's like you're wondering, is this discipline from God because I like messed up, or am I being tested by God? And it's like, okay, well, whichever one it is, you have the same response. Turn to God. Like maybe you're being disciplined, and if so, repent and turn to God. And maybe you're being tested, and if so, repent and turn to God. It's like either way, like just turn to God. And technically, you should be doing that at any given time in life. But sometimes it's like whenever things are like really like when you're going through the fire, it's like this is time to turn to God. It's like can't hurt. So I mean, I guess it could.
Jeez.
But not in a long-term way.
He'll hurt. But
temporary affliction.
Yes.
Sorry, I was reading ahead and I'm like,
don't worry, we'll get there.
Right.
We're about to get there.
So don't worry. Speaking of, so chapter 16 is a lot of verses, so I figure I probably won't read through the whole thing at one time. I think I kind of made verse 34 is my like kind of arbitrary cutoff line for my read through.
Yeah. So
I'll just read through verse 34 first, and then we'll talk.
And it goes without saying, we're going to try our best to be mature in this conversation. Chapter 16 and 23 are some kind of weird ones, and so we're just going to be mature. Okay?
Yeah, of course.
Just trying to give us a heads up, because we're just a group of dudes, and like sometimes whenever guys get to stuff like this, we just start getting all goofy. So
yeah,
this is going to go on YouTube. The public can see this.
Yes. There are going to be 10 people who watch this video.
We got to be mature for the 10 people.
Yeah.
No, this is the one video.
This is the one video where like everybody's going to watch it.
Everyone's going to watch it.
True. Alrighty. Then the word of Yahweh came to me, saying, Son of man, make known to Jerusalem her abominations, and say, Thus says Lord Yahweh to Jerusalem, Your origin and your birth are from the land of the Canaanites. Your father was an Amorite, and your mother a Hittite. As for your birth, on the day you were born, your navel cord was not cut, nor were you washed with water for cleansing. You were not rubbed with salt, or even wrapped in cloths. No eye had pity on you to do any of these things for you, to have compassion on you. Rather, you were thrown out in the open field, for your soul was abhorred on the day you were born. Then I passed by you and saw you squirming in your blood. So I said to you while you were in your blood, Live! Indeed, I said to you while you were in your blood, Live! I made you numerous like the plants of the field. Then you grew up, became tall, and came into the age for fine ornaments. Your breasts were formed, and your hair had grown, yet you were naked and bare. Then I passed by you and saw you, and behold, you were at the time for love. So I spread my wing over you and covered your nakedness. I also swore to you and entered into a covenant with you, so that you became mine, declares Lord Yahweh. Then I washed you with water, rinsed your blood off from you, and anointed you with oil. I also clothed you with embroidered cloth, and put sandals of porpoise skin on your feet. And I wrapped you with fine linen, and covered you with silk. I also adorned you with ornaments, and put bracelets on your hands, and a necklace around your neck. I also put a ring in your nose, earrings in your ears, and a splendid crown on your head. Thus you were adorned with gold and silver, and your clothing was of fine linen, silk, and embroidered cloth. You ate fine flour, honey, and oil, so you were exceedingly beautiful and advanced in royalty. Then your name went forth among the nations on account of your beauty, for it was perfect because of my majesty which I set on you, declares Lord Yahweh. But you trusted in your beauty and played at the harlot because of your name, and you poured out your harlotries on every passerby who might be willing. You took some of your clothes, made for yourself high places of various colors, and played the harlot on them, which should never come about nor happen. You also took your splendid jewelry, made of my gold and of my silver, which I had given you, and you made for yourself male images, that you might play the harlot with them. Then you took your embroidered cloth and covered them, and gave them my oil and my incense before them. Also my bread, which I gave you, fine flour, oil, and honey, with which I had you eat. You gave them before them for a soothing aroma. So it happened, declares Lord Yahweh. Moreover, you took your sons and daughters, which you had borne to me, and sacrificed them to idols to be devoured. Were your harlotries so small a matter? You slaughtered my children and gave them up to idols by causing them to pass through the fire. Besides all your abominations and harlotries you did, you not remember the days of your youth, when you were naked and bare. You were squirming in your blood. Now it happened after all your evil. Woe, woe to you, declares Lord Yahweh, that you built yourself a shrine and made yourself a high place in every square. You built yourself a high place at the head of every street and made your beauty abominable, and you spread your legs to every passerby to multiply your harlotry. You also played the harlot with the Egyptians, your lustful neighbors, and you multiplied your harlotry to provoke me to anger. Behold now, I have stretched out my hand against you and cut off your rations. And I gave you up to the desires of those who hate you, the daughters of the Philistines, who are ashamed of your lewd way. Moreover, you played the harlot with the Assyrians, because you were not satisfied. You played the harlot with them, and were still not satisfied. You also multiplied your harlotry with the land of merchants, Chaldea, yet even with this you were not satisfied. How languishing is your heart, declares Lord Yahweh. While you do all these things, the actions of a bold-faced harlot, when you built your shrine at the head of every way, and made your high place in every square, and disdaining your earnings, you were not like a harlot. You adulterous wife, who takes strangers instead of her husband. Men give gifts to all harlots, But you give your gifts to all your lovers, to bribe them to come to you from all around for your harlotries. Thus, you are the opposite of those women in your harlotries, and that no one plays the harlot as you do, because you give away your earnings, and no earnings are given to you. Thus, you are the opposite. We'll stop there.
Boom, roasted.
Boom.
Wow.
Okay, so what happens there?
Alright.
So it starts off, and it kind of gives, God basically gives a history of Israel's forming into a nation.
Yeah.
How they started off as a people who were abhorred, who, came from a foreign land. Nobody wanted them. They were squirming in their blood. They were essentially naked and barren, and that sort of represents their slavery.
Mm-hmm.
And then it talks about God dressing them in the finest of gold and silver jewelry and giving them all these fine linens, fine cloths, the best food to eat, and that represents, their time going into Israel, getting situated in the Holy Land, and obviously the rise of the kingdom up to their golden age.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously everything falls apart when they start submitting to idolatry and playing the harlot, as he calls it, for the nations around them, where they're basically giving themselves up and cheapening themselves by, making idols of the gold that God had given them, and
Mm-hmm.
wasting all of their, provision, because they were secure. They had been given a safety that they weren't afforded before, and they took that for granted. And it's just, the ultimate betrayal to a God who did everything for them when they had nothing.
Yeah, basically, this is just an expanded version of Deuteronomy 32,
Yeah.
but like much more extreme.
And graphic.
And it makes sense because Deuteronomy 32. I mean, this kind of again compares Ezekiel to Moses.
Yeah.
Because Deuteronomy 32 is called the Song of Moses, and basically it is. I mean, the book of Deuteronomy is Moses' final will and testament. Right? The Israelites, they are on the edge of the Jordan River. Moses is about to die, and he says, "Before I die, I'm going to tell you everything that's going to go down for you through the end of history, basically." And he basically predicts all of Israel's history going forward. And that one is much more like, it's just predictive prophecy, right? To where when you read it, it feels very zoomed out, and there's emotion, but the emotion feels more like, I don't even know how to describe it.
It's almost more epic in a way.
Yeah, well, yeah, like it's like a sweeping epic to where, like, think of like the I don't know, the opening, like the introduction to like Fellowship of the Ring, like in the movie, where it's like, it's just telling you what's gonna happen, and yes, there is swelling emotion, but it doesn't feel like as like engaged,
Or
right?
like the opening crawl of the Star Wars movie.
Yeah, to where Moses basically says, "Here's what's gonna happen." Like God, like whenever God dispersed the nations in ancient times, He chose you, His people, to be His lot. And He is going to take you into this land, and He's going to give you this land, and you are going to grow fat, and you are going to kick, and you're going to rebel against Him, and He's going to hand you over to the nations, and He's going to hide His face, and He's going to go off to the Gentiles, and He's going to destroy you, and He's going to wait until you have nothing left, and then He's going to come back and save you. Mm-hmm. And like it just basically is just like this sweeping like history of Israel, whereas this is the same message, but it's from the perspective of somebody who is not looking forward, he's looking backward. Mm-hmm. And therefore it's a lot more crass and a lot more graphic. Because this is not a person saying, "Hey, be careful what you do, this is what's going to happen." This is a person saying, "Look at what you did." Right? And so it's like, he can't get across the same point by being as like just poetic and sweet. Instead, he is like, let me paint the most vivid and crass and disgusting image. Right? Whenever God found you, you were a sniveling little baby who was near the point of death. He took you in. He raised you up. He made you into a beautiful woman who was deserving of Him. And what did you do? You went and prostituted yourself. And that's not even enough, right? You opened your legs to every single man who walked by. Yeah. And you gave yourself to them. And it would be one thing if you functioned like a normal prostitute, right? A normal prostitute sells her body for money. But he says that's not what you did. Instead, you paid them to come into you. So you're doing the reverse of prostitution. This is not somebody who is like normal prostitutes, especially at this time period. like women would do this because they had like basically no other choice, right? It was like
Yeah.
they didn't have any other alternatives. Okay, and that's even true for a lot of prostitutes nowadays, right? It's desperation that leads them to do this.
Most of them choose,
Yeah, it's like they're desperate, and so they're like, okay, well, I need to pay the bills. I'm gonna go do this. Whereas what he says with Israel, it's like, no, you're not doing this out of desperation. You're doing this because you love it. He said, you started your prostitution whenever you were at the height of it. Like you were a queen, right? You were the wife of a king, and everything was going great. You had a kingdom. It was all beautiful. And then you decided to just start like opening your legs to like the peasants, and you have all these diseases, and now I'm going to lift your skirts and I'm going to reveal it. And like, it's so graphic, but it's graphic for a purpose, because it's like, it's supposed to sting, and it's supposed to make them feel shame, and they're supposed to feel like disgusting with themselves. And that does run contrary to the modern, cozy view of God, where he's supposed to, he's just supposed to make you feel comfortable, and, God doesn't judge. That's what people say nowadays. That's not how God is. Right? No, God loves you, and therefore he will tell you what you need to hear. And sometimes you need to hear that you've been playing a harlot, and you need to start closing your legs and get back to him. Right? That's just true. And that is the loving thing. Right? Were you going to say something?
Yeah, it was just a couple of things. Well, so one thing is just kind of like a funny thing, because you mentioned the whole thing of like, oh, God doesn't judge, and it's like this thing that I see on Twitter where it's like this guy like pointing to like a verse, and it's like his face is like all shocked. And it's the thing with Matthew where Jesus says, judge not lest you be judged. And then there's like all the verses after that about judging people properly.
Yes.
And it's all crossed out.
Yeah.
And it's like a lot of people tend to have that view where it's like they just focus on the judge not.
Well, that's what people love
like,
to do. Context doesn't matter.
Yeah,
It's
like,
all just...
Judge not is like, yes, don't judge people, but also judgment, like, when it's taken into like righteous judgment, it's like, that's good.
Well, Jesus' whole point there is don't be a hypocritical judgment.
Right.
Like judge.
Yeah.
Like he says, basically check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Right. Take the log out of your own eye before you judge the speck in your brother's. Well, and I mean, with this thing, it's like, I guess it just reminds me of how like often it's like in Proverbs and like in like a lot of the wisdom books, it's like wisdom is personified as like a very rich woman, which like it kind of, that's what the description like immediately reminded me of.
Well, and folly is personified as an adulteress or a prostitute.
Right.
A lot of times, yeah.
Well, and so like, I mean, this just kind of goes, it reminds me, because like there's a lot of the principles that Christ talks about where it's like the more that you are given and the more that like you are given, it's like because that's like the reason by which you're judged.
Yeah.
Like in eschaton, right?
Yeah.
And I guess it just like, it just kind of reminded me of that, because it's like, it's almost like, you have wisdom personified as like a very rich woman with like gold and beauty, and then God is like building up you from like a literal, like spiritually speaking, like, and that's even like how it uses the term, like an infant, like no swaddling clothes and no nothing, being built up into like this beautiful woman with like gold. And it's like, that just to me, it's like pretty much to me, it's like, it's just saying that God had given them like such wisdom, and like he had revealed so much of himself to them, that they had all this richness. And it's like they did that, and then they completely just threw it all away. So it's like, because of that, it's like they get the greater condemnation on top of that. And that's why it's like, he's talking about how awful the fire is going to be in all the previous chapters and leading up.
Yeah, because the first few verses, so the first couple verses say, your origin was and your birth are from the land of the Canaanites, your father was an Amorite, and your mother a Hittite. I guess like, first of all, like, what is he saying? Like, what does he say there? Verse 3.
Well, they came from the land of Canaan, which is true,
Yeah.
Israel wasn't always Israel. The land existed far before the man it would be named after.
Yeah, I thought this was a very interesting way to personify, like, or I guess to like just like to retell their history.
Yeah.
It's a very unique way. Like I can't think of any other place in Scripture where it is specifically retold in this fashion, where like he's literally almost like tracing Israel's history as if the nation itself was a human being.
Yeah.
And so like that's one of those things where you always have to keep in mind that like a metaphor is always going to break down eventually.
Yeah.
And so he's not literally saying like, because obviously, I mean, we would say that like the patriarch of Israel is ultimately Abraham, right? I mean, I guess you could say Jacob, but obviously Abraham was not born to an Amorite father and a Hittite mother. That's not what God is saying. but he's talking about the nation itself, right? The nation itself was born in the land of Canaan, right? Like that's where, like whenever God called Abram, he said, go to the land of Canaan, right? And whenever you read Genesis, it's all taking place in the land of the Canaanites and the Amorites and the Hittites. And it's just such a unique way of like God is literally just personifying them as a baby. And it's like, yeah, your mother would this is who you grew up being surrounded by. Mm-hmm. You were surrounded by Hittites and Canaanites and Amorites. And I find that fascinating to where then you see them grow into the youth and she goes through puberty. And it's just such a very interesting way of, I guess hypothetically you could do this with any nation. You could probably do the same imagery with the U.S. or something like that. But it's just a very unique thing. I don't really see that elsewhere in Scripture. You have other places where Israel's history is retold, but this is just a cool way of doing it.
Yeah, the imagery of verses 4 and 5 is it's very grotesque, but at least to me, it just reads baby was born, and then it's almost it doesn't even say that their cord was cut. It's they're just a baby just hanging out of their mom, just all bloody on the ground, just screaming and crying, and it says there was no eye to pity you or to have compassion with you, and the imagery to me is this is a newly born. I mean, obviously in the metaphor, it's a newly born nation, but the idea is that they're alone and they have no one to guide them. Because also it doesn't really mention parents being there. Yeah. It's where it says he was passing by and saw them, and so the nation of Israel started off we have to also remember that in Genesis God is the one who kind of comes about creating the nation, but the whole thing is he is their parent in a way, to where he raises them up into what he wants them to be. But Israel, all nations need a king, and they need a law, and so they need guidance and a ruler. And so Israel is a nation that was born specially, and it didn't have anything else to guide it. And so God basically steps in and is the one who does that.
Well, he's their adopted father.
He's their adopted father, and so especially and I think as you read on a little more, we're gonna kind of see where later on it'll talk about how really back in Egypt they were idolatrous back even then, and I think that the idea is the idolatry never really left them when they left Egypt, and so if you think of it that way, these are also whenever he saves them out of Egypt, there's still this child needing guidance, and so I mean in a way you could even argue the law that he gives them is it's specifically to combat the idolatry of Egypt.
Well, but I think it even goes before that, because I think that that might be kind of what it's hinting at when it says your navel cord was not cut. Because the idea, if it says that your father was an Amorite, your mother was a Hittite, the idea is that those are pagans. And so they were born in Canaanite land, but they were never fully severed off. They were never fully, you know what I mean? They were never fully cut off.
When it's where you get your nutrition, they're still feeding on it.
Yeah, and so I think that's the idea is sure enough, when they went to Egypt, what they did is they just started living like the Egyptians. We kind of talked about this a little bit in the podcast, but oftentimes I think usually due to depictions that we've seen in art, like the Prince of Egypt and stuff like that, great movie, but we always imagine the Israelites in Egypt crying out, being God, deliver us. And we almost imagine them faithfully suffering through these hundreds of years of bondage. But the Bible never says that. Instead, what you do is you have Abraham, who is faithful to Yahweh, which is good, but he still messes up a lot. Basically, Abraham and Isaac are both faithful to Yahweh. Jacob, he just gets dragged kicking and screaming into the covenant. And then Joseph is faithful, but all the other brothers are not really that faithful. And so the imagery, whenever Israel is entering into Egypt, they're not the image of this perfect family that's following God. And we're not supposed to imagine that all of a sudden they magically turned into faithful followers during their time in Egypt.
Yeah.
And instead, we're going to see in Ezekiel, it says, no, you were worshiping the gods of Egypt. And so the idea is that they kind of learned paganism in Canaan, and then even when they went down to Egypt, the navel cord was not cut. And so God's going to come, he's going to come to them and find them. But even then, they're still attached to their parent, and he's trying to adopt them. And then you're gonna fast forward a little bit to the whole idea of finding them in their time of love, and he's going to take them to be his bride. But I don't want to get ahead of that. So.
Oh yeah, no, you're good. I mean, I guess that's pretty much most of what I was saying. But yeah, like they were a nation that needed guidance, and so eventually God takes them out of Egypt and he gives them that law and he becomes their king through the covenants. But
well, the imagery, sorry, I keep going back to verse 4, but so it says, your navel cord was not cut, nor were you washed with water for cleansing, and you were not rubbed with salt or even wrapped in cloths. Like the interesting idea is like, so their parents metaphorically are Canaanites, and they're learning everything from these parents, and they want to be like their parents, but their parents aren't doing anything for them, right? And so like the idea is like that they were worshiping these foreign gods, but the gods weren't doing anything for them, and
yes.
God's whole point, like Yahweh saying, I'm the one who did everything for you, yet you go cheat on me. It's like that's where like it makes it even more like frustrating, because he's saying, why are you so attached to these people who've done nothing for you? It's kind of like the whole like meme nowadays of like nice guys finish last. It's like you'll see like this girl who she's gone through all these terrible guys, and then finally she dates a guy who's like a really solid dude, and then she goes and cheats on him to just go be with a bad guy again. And it's like, what the heck is going on here? Like it's like are you on like crazy pills? Like that's how God feels about Israel, to where it's like they're so devoted to their metaphorical parents and their parents' ways that they just neglected him, and he's the one who did everything for them. It's like, but I think there's even truth to that, like with the whole imagery of an adopted parent. Like there are plenty of adopted parents who have felt this exact way, to where they're like, you know, a kid's biological parents will just ditch them and do nothing. They'll be like deadbeats, aren't even in their life. And the adopted parents will do everything for this kid. Yet for some reason, the kid just has no appreciation for their adopted parents and just wants to be with their biological parents. And it's like, I've seen like families where like the heartbreak in the parents, like, cause they're like, are we really like that undesirable that like I understand that you have this biological connection to these guys, but like they don't care about you, and they've done nothing for you. Like we're the ones who've done everything for you. Why do you keep rejecting us? And I don't know. Like it seems like that's all what's going on there, and it's just so sad.
Very.
Especially whenever you consider the fact that it's like God doesn't need Israel. He's doing all of this because he loves them, and it's like if this were like a human relationship, you would just think that the guy is like super desperate for a relationship and probably just needs to move on, right? But God doesn't need like Israel. He just chose them, and it's like I don't know. It's just sad.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, a lot of the vocabulary through like verses like 8 and like just a lot of the stuff through like the next like half. It's like like how you said, it's like in Deuteronomy 32. Like a lot of this stuff calls back to like specific events in Scripture. Like I don't know why skirt's translated as skirt whenever it's usually wing. Especially just because like the imagery of like God putting like their wing over them is like in Scripture already.
Yeah.
But
I'm assuming they did that just to go with the metaphor. Like that's one thing that does annoy me a lot of times with translations is that like
ESV just says garments.
yeah. Well, yeah, but the word is literally wing, correct?
Yeah.
Like a mother's wing, or I mean like a mother hen or something like that.
Yeah, it's usually like two different words. It usually gets translated as wing or I forget the other one, like corner or something like that.
Yeah.
But
that's one thing that does annoy me sometimes. Like again, translators do way too much interpretation all the times when they make their translations, to where we ran into this in like Genesis 49 when it comes to like when Jacob is blessing Joseph. Mm-hmm. Like most translations are just committed to the idea that like Jacob is personifying Joseph as like a garden basically, and so it'll say like a fruitful bough is Joseph, and like but literally in Hebrew it just says a fruitful son is Joseph. Like there's a very it's a very common word. It just means son, and it'll say like sons and daughters, but they'll translate it as like boughs and vines, and it's like that's just not what it says. Like you're forcing the metaphor. Whereas I think right here that's probably what's happening is like since God is describing himself as like he's describing Israel as a baby that is in a like totally vulnerable to the elements and stuff like that. Yeah. And God says he came by and protected her. Well, if you're running with the imagery of God being like a father, well, he is clothing her and is saying, I put my, the skirt of my robe. So that's what he's saying in the metaphor. But the word is literally just wing. It's like, just put wing, like, just trust that the readers can put two and two together, right? It's like, the idea is that he covered them, right? It's like, you can have two metaphors side by side. It's fine. That's just, it's a pet peeve of mine, to where it's like a lot of translators don't trust readers to do the work, which is fair because a lot of people won't do the work, but we're not, like, it's kind of like whenever people say, oh, well, kids' attention spans are getting shorter, so we have to give them shorter lessons. It's like, no, because then their attention spans are going to get even shorter. It's like, you've got to just, like people will just adapt to, like, the lowest common denominator. And so, it's like, just, I don't know. That's a whole resistance. Yeah. Yeah, so it's like, just make it harder and then make them put in the work. That to me is what you should do. But
yeah.
Rant over.
Yeah, and then in the same verse, this is something we've talked about a lot, but he says that I swore to you and you entered into a covenant, or I entered into a covenant with you so that you became mine. Just again, like the text here is kind of framing the Mosaic covenant in like a very like marriage, like it frames it like a marriage, where like everything with like Mount Sinai and that whole thing, it's like it frames it as like a wedding.
Yeah. Well, and you see that even in verse 7, to where, like, so basically verses, I guess, 4 through 6 is portraying Israel as like a baby. Mm-hmm. And you can interpret that as like the events of Genesis, right? And then verse 7, I made you numerous like the plants of the field. And that should immediately just ring to mind Exodus chapter 1, right? They're in Egypt, they're multiplying, right? Then you grew up, became tall, came into the age for fine ornaments, right? So the idea is they came to the age of maturity. Mm-hmm. So if you're going with the idea of a woman, well, this is like hitting puberty. But for Israel, well, it goes back to the promise that God had made to Abraham, like your descendants are going to go into a land that is not theirs for 400 years, and whenever the sin of the Amorite is complete, I will come and get them, right? So that the idea is that those hundreds of years were the time of Israel's maturity, right? So he was waiting for them to be of age. And then it says, your breasts were formed, your hair had grown, yet you were naked and bare. So the idea is that during their time in Egypt, they were being weaned by, like, it's almost like comparable to Moses. Like, if you think about the fact, like, Moses, he was found by Pharaoh's daughter, and he was adopted as Pharaoh's daughter, but he wasn't raised by Pharaoh's daughter. He was actually raised by his own mother, where Pharaoh's daughter hired Moses' mother to raise him, and then after Moses was raised, he was given back to Pharaoh's daughter. It's almost like that's like the reverse imagery going on here, to where it's like God adopted Israel, but for a time he entrusted them to Egypt to wean them, right? But whenever he came to like find Israel, she had reached the age of maturity, so she's like a full-grown, like a girl now. She's hit puberty and everything, but she's naked. And the idea is that, okay, they guided her to maturity, but she is not being provided for, right? Which is going to once again emphasize the fact that like God's frustration and why do you keep going back to these people who don't provide for you? The Canaanites, they left you naked. I clothed you, right? And then the Egyptians, they left you naked. I clothed you. Why do you keep going back to these people who don't care for you?
Yeah.
And I wanted to highlight that verse in particular because where is it that it specifically says that you would reach the age of like love?
Verse 8.
Is that verse 8?
When I passed by you again.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, sorry.
And I saw, behold, you're at the age for love.
Yeah. I just wanted to highlight that because this is, once again, like, whenever I read the Bible, I always try to read it through the mind of, like, a skeptic. And this is where somebody would probably accuse God of being really perverse. And I just have to remind you, it's all a metaphor, right? Because if you're tracking with the imagery so far, God has been functioning as the adoptive father of Israel. And now, all of a sudden, it's transitioning, and he is now going to be functioning as the pursuing groom. And if this were a normal scenario, and this were a literal situation, that would be pretty messed up. Because that basically is just like a guy, the imagery of a guy adopting a girl so that he can groom her and marry her later on. Yeah. That is unacceptable, right? And this is where I always try to read it through the lens of a skeptic. They can look at this and say, oh, look at Yahweh. Like, that's perverted. That's messed up. It is a metaphor, right? And every metaphor is going to break down eventually But what God is doing is he's highlighting there is now a shift in the relationship, right? Because keep in mind, Israel is not literally a girl, it is a nation, right? And God is not literally a father, and he is not literally a groom. He is using these descriptions to describe how he relates to them, all right? So there's nothing perverted going on here, right? There's a shift in metaphor. I just wanted to highlight that. And so he's pointing out that in like the book of Genesis, right, that's when he's functioning more like a father to them, and he's growing them up, right? But starting in Exodus, whenever he sends Moses there, he is a groom who is wooing his bride, right? And so there is a shift in relationship, and that's quite fitting. You even see that reflected in the text of Exodus, to where God shows up to Moses and he says, to your fathers I was known by El Shaddai, right? But to you I make myself known as Yahweh, and I am here to reveal myself to you and make myself known to you, and I will take you to the mountain, and you will be mine, and I will be yours. It's all marriage language, right? And so I just wanted to highlight there's a shift in the metaphor here, and I can guarantee you, I haven't even looked it up, I can guarantee you there are skeptics who have gone through here to accuse God of being like a pervert or something.
So that was like my first thought, honestly.
Yeah.
It's like when we were reading, I was like, okay. I was like, obviously I know what it means, but it's like immediately in the back of my mind, I was like, if you take this to its logical conclusion, which again, it's a metaphor. You should probably never do that with metaphors. I was like, that obviously sounds bad.
Well, you legitimately can't do it with metaphors, right? Like, that's the whole point of a metaphor, is that it is a comparison, but it is not the same thing. Because if it was the same thing, then you wouldn't need a metaphor. Because you're just like, the whole point of a metaphor is that you're trying to convey something. So it's like, whenever Jesus says, I am the bread of life, does that mean that Jesus gets moldy after a few weeks? No, it doesn't, right? It's like you can't just like go, like you don't take it to the natural end. Like he's making a specific point in that moment, right? And there can be a shift. Even later on in Scripture, you see the same imagery where we are described as like there are times where, in Isaiah, Jesus is described as everlasting Father. Okay, but he's the Son of God. And there are places in the New Testament where we are described as the bride of Christ, but we're also kind of described as the brother of Christ. And we're all described as being adopted sons of God, and God is triune. And so that means that in a way we are also the son of Jesus. And so it's like, which one is it? They're all metaphors to help us understand the relationship, right? That we're not, like, even whenever you describe Jesus being the Son of God, he is not literally, he was not literally born. He is not, there's not some mother goddess out there. This is actually where cults get started, because there are cults that do believe there was a mother goddess. Or if you look at like the Latter-day Saints, they do believe Jesus was literally born from the father and a mother. And like, so this is where, whenever you take metaphors too far, you end up with weird teachings. I just want to highlight this because I can guarantee you there are people online who use this to argue against God.
I bet.
And the irony is that most Christians will not even be aware that this passage is here, so they won't have a response for it. Because the thing is, they don't read Ezekiel, right? So the crazy part about this is that, like, usually the skeptics, they're the ones who are actually reading the Bible because they're trying to find arguments against God. And then the Christians aren't actually reading their Bibles, so they don't have rebuttals. And so that's really the problem, and that's on us. So
something that, like you said, that this is literally just like a stupid joke that I thought of. It's like you were talking about, like, Jesus saying he's the bread of life. Does that mean he gets moldy a week later? It's like I was literally just thinking about like a literal fundamentalist, like someone who takes everything completely fundamental, like even metaphors, like just that's such a heavy extreme. And it's like they just start this whole church and they're teaching it's like, so on the eschaton, like Christ is going to come back and it's like there's going to be like some mold, so just like don't worry about it.
Well, if you take things too literally, honestly, it's hard to even explain this whole chapter.
No,
because the idea is like because now all of a sudden you're like, I don't know what he's talking about. Like, when did God literally come across a baby whose navel, like what? Like what? Like you literally can't understand this if you make it literal, right? The whole point is that it's a metaphor. And so I just wanted to highlight that because I didn't mean to linger on it this long.
Yeah.
I just wanted to highlight it because I know that it will be brought up by people at some point, and you might come across it. It's good to have a response.
Yeah, that's true. Moving on a bit further, like, verses like 9 through 13, a few of the different words here, they like actually, I would say, call back to like specific moments during like the Torah, just as a couple of random examples, like the porpoise skin there. I thought that was weird at first, but the word pops up a bunch in Exodus. It's like the tabernacle tent covering, to where it's like he literally he says put sandals of porpoise skin on your feet, but there's this imagery of like this fine linen and the silk. These are all tabernacle imagery, like the tapestry and stuff.
Yeah. Well, I even figured verse 9 when it says I washed you with water, I'm assuming that's just talking about the parting of the Red Seas.
I can see.
I'm assuming because it's literally I swore to you and you entered into covenant with you he brought them through the waters of the Red Sea on the way to the mountain to make that covenant.
Mm-hmm.
And then even rinsing your blood off from you. Whenever they're at Mount Sinai, that's whenever you get all the they receive the laws and they receive the laws about purity, to where it's all about cleanliness and actually washing yourself, and then you also have the sprinkling of blood and stuff, and so the imagery all fits.
Well, yeah, it was So this 24. Yeah, so this is where he cuts the covenant with Israel. Moses took half the blood and put it in basins, so they just had sacrificed a bull. And the other half of the blood he sprinkled on the altar. Then he took the book of the covenant and read it in the hearing of the people, and they said, all that Yahweh has spoken we will do, and we will be obedient. So Moses took the blood and sprinkled it on the people and said, behold the blood of the covenant which Yahweh has cut with you in accordance with all these words. Just going back to the moment when they cut the covenant and they swore to him. I think later on he'll reference how they actually swore to him and everything.
And then verses 11 through 13 and stuff, where it's them being adorned with all the jewelry. I'm assuming, is that referring to them just entering into the land, conquering it, and receiving the kingdom?
I think it's part of it, yeah. So the word for the ornaments, the only time it really shows up is in Exodus 33, where it mentions them God tells them to put away their ornaments, because it was after the golden calf incident.
Yeah.
So I guess it technically doesn't mention that word when they get them, but the implication is they had them.
Yeah. Well, that's why I was treating it more metaphorically, because whenever you think of ornaments, bracelets, hands, necklace stuff with Israel, what I think of is right before the golden calf, whenever they give up their stuff to Aaron to make a golden calf,
Yeah.
And so to me, I was thinking, okay, it seems like that language is calling back to the golden calf incident, but in that incident, they were giving away their stuff.
Which
and then, so yeah, and so since he's saying that he adorned them, I was like, okay, well, it seems like that's alluding to that moment, but as a result of the golden calf stuff, they had to give up their stuff, and then God gave them something better. And so I was kind of interpreting it as they got into the land, and because they gave up the idolatry, right, the golden calf and all that stuff, he gave them a better ornamentation, right? He gave them a land flowing with milk and honey. He gave them a kingdom. So that's kind of how I was making that leap in logic there.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Just because immediately after that, verse 14, then your name went forth among the nations on account of your beauty, for it was perfect. It's that's almost describing the United Kingdom under David and Solomon, where that's they're at the height of their whenever you have Solomon, it says that silver was so plentiful that it was stones, and he just everything's being adorned with gold.
Yeah.
So it would line up with them being adorned with gold and silver. And then their name goes forth, and everybody's wow, Israel. It's their golden age.
Yeah, well, and right before that it says, so you were exceedingly beautiful and advanced to royalty.
Yeah.
So that seems to be what that's talking about.
Yeah, so now there's a king on the throne, everything's going good, but then you trusted in your beauty and played the harlot. So there's the issue. They forgot to trust in God, right? The whole idea is that they looked at everything they had, and they did what all kingdoms do. They did what Nebuchadnezzar did. Oh, look at this kingdom I've made. Aren't I amazing? And it's no. It's you're not the one who did that for yourself. You didn't take yourself out of slavery. You didn't bring yourself through the Red Sea. You didn't make a kingdom for yourself. No, I did that for you.
Just kind of a random funny thought, but it's you mentioned Nebuchadnezzar, and I just think about Babylonian kings, and just ancient kings in general. It's how they'll conquer the known area around them. They'll maybe conquer 2 major cities, and they're yeah, I'm the God King of the universe.
Yeah.
They just have such a high ego for taking out.
Okay, but
small
the thing is, we do the same thing. I will I will go preach a sermon, and it'll be pretty good, and I'm the best, and I'm oh, what's wrong with it? Pride is just such an issue of the human heart, to where it's Like, what the heck is going on? And what was I going to say there? What was it? Oh, I was like, what this made me think of is like those like billionaires who were like, yeah, I did this all on my own, and they're like, oh, you mean like your parents were also millionaires too. You just made good investments. Like, it's like, yeah, I didn't receive anything from my parents. Yeah, except for like $10 million. it's like okay.
I probably gave you a small loan of $1 million.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
I'm never gonna let him live that one
Yeah,
down.
it's just living in a totally different world. But he's saying that's what Israel did, right? They got to the height of their glory, and he's the one who got them there, and they just they just thought that they did it themselves. And it makes no sense, because keep in mind, it's like they were essentially an abandoned orphan dying on the streets, and God's the one he was a king who came and made them a queen and gave them a kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't happen by accident. Yet they took the glory for themselves. And they're like, look, I'm the queen of a kingdom. And he's like, what? No. Like, that's not how this works. I'm the king. And they just ignored him. And so.
Yeah. And the metaphor, the story kind of progresses in the next few verses. So, I guess more specifically 16 through 19. What is the main thing there? So first he says that he has given them all these things, and then the first kind of thing he says is he accuses them of trusting in their beauty and playing the harlot, and then furthermore, what does he accuse them of doing in the next few verses?
They start giving themselves over, and the way that he personifies it is they're stripping themselves down. So it's all the clothes and the ornamentation that he gave them, they are now taking off to give to others.
Yeah.
In addition, this is the reverse prostitution thing, to where the people are not paying them to sleep with them. They are the ones paying the other people.
Yeah.
And so they're taking the things that he gave them and also giving their bodies to these people. And so.
Yeah, that to me, I think the saddest part is that it's not just things it's not like he gave them the ability to raise their own money and then they use those things that they earned. It's literally the imagery is giving someone a gift, and then the next day you see them with someone and they're wearing that necklace you gave them, and you're just oof.
So whenever my cousin he had this a daughter who was maybe 3 or 4 years old, and I remember for Christmas one year, he just told me the story, but he was so excited. He's never had a whole lot of money, but he had saved up all year to get her some Christmas gifts, and he was so happy to give her these gifts, and she opened all of them. And she was so young and so innocent that she did not mean anything by this, but she basically looked, she's like, oh, well, I don't really want any of these, so can we go give them to somebody else? And it crushed him, because for him, he was just a dad just struggling, just trying to provide, and she did not know, and I can guarantee you she probably does not know that story now, because that would just be terrible. But the thing is, that's almost probably how God feels here, except the difference is that this was not a young child doing this. This is a grown adult who knows better.
Yeah.
Right? This is if one of y'all gave me a present, and while you're looking at me, I said, hey, Nick, you want to go out to eat? Here. And I take what you gave me, and I just give it to him. And it's all right, well, I don't feel like hanging out with y'all anymore. Him and I are going to go do something, and we just leave. It's it not only is it ungrateful, but it's cruel. Because you're doing it in front of their very eyes, and you're basically saying, I don't want this. I'm just going to use it to gain something else for myself. And it's that's just deplorable.
Yeah. And on top of that, all the imagery here, you kind of mentioned earlier, it's all things that specifically tie into harlotry. So it's talking about making high places, and then making male images, and then it says the cloth, they covered them and gave them oil and incense. At least in my head, whenever to me that seems it's painting the picture of almost a brothel room, where it's creating a room, and then creating images to fill in the room, and then it's like the oil and incense that would fill the air. It's almost aphrodisiac, good smelling stuff, incense and all that stuff. To where it's it's not even just giving it, it's not just that this person is giving it to other people. It's they're repurposing them to like cheat for the purpose of cheating.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, and like, it's interesting to me. Like, I love the metaphor of cheating when it comes to like being unfaithful to God, because I think it makes a lot of sense. Like, this is where I think that we, as like Christians, like especially over in America, we need to do a better job of explaining what faith is, because we talk about this a lot in Bible study. But in general, if you were to ask like the average Christian in America what faith is, they would just say it's like belief, right? It's just like basically agreeing to a set of doctrines. Whereas the way the Bible continuously portrays it is as devotion, right? Like faith is allegiance to God, right? And that's why the marriage imagery works so well, because like even the word faith, I just don't really like faithfulness is a better understanding of what the Bible means by faith, because if I were to say I have faith in Brienne, well, that isn't saying I'm faithful to her. That's saying that I trust her to be faithful to me. Whereas whenever the Bible talks about faith, it's talking about our faithfulness to God, right? Yes, He is faithful to us as well, but it's saying our devotion to Him. And one thing that I think is just like whenever you look at the Bible, it consistently uses the marriage imagery, right? And the way that God portrays like idolatry is unfaithfulness, right? And that's because they're giving their devotion and their allegiance and their trust to something else. And I think what we see here is like it's a mixture of both idolatry, but also just like alliances with other nations.
Yeah.
Right? Because like a lot of the stuff that they're doing here, part of it was, they were giving away the gold that God had given them to make idols of themselves. But what we also see, if you go read like Kings and Chronicles, is that they are literally giving the money that God had given them to other nations in order to form these alliances so that those nations could defend them.
Yeah.
Whereas God's whole thing is saying, no, I will defend you. Like that's like Isaiah's whole message throughout his book. He's saying, Emmanuel, God is with us, right? You do not need to go down to Egypt. You do not need to go to Assyria. And they're even going to talk about that in verse 28, where he's like, you played the harlot with the Assyrians. So it's not just about idolatry. It's literally about devotion. Like they were, rather than trusting in God to provide for their both physical and spiritual needs, they were going to idols, and they were going to foreign nations, and they were seeking that help. And so that's where it's like I think we need to do a better job of like clarifying that faith equals allegiance, devotion, trust, because that is clearly what's being addressed here. Like they are unfaithful by placing their devotion somewhere else. It's not that they had bad doctrine and that they simply stopped to believe the right, because a lot of the Israelites, they still agreed, oh yes, Yahweh is the one who took us out of Egypt. Like they still agreed on that. They just were giving their devotion to other gods as well. Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, like, I think a big thing with like the whole faith is like it's not just like, don't get me wrong, the mindset and like the things you believe in the heart, that is important, but it's like people tend to overemphasize that to where it's like the stuff that you do kind of doesn't really matter, where it's like when you think about like how ancient people thought about that, it's like the doing was like really important.
Yeah, well, yeah.
It's like, well, because like the whole thing is like, well, what is your God? If you ask that question to like an ancient person, it's like, well, it's like it's just whatever you make a sacrifice for, whatever you're willing to make a sacrifice for every single day. It's like whatever you devote yourself to, what you're trying to become like, that's your God.
Yeah. Well, like y'all know that I'm married to Brienne, right? And all because we all know that in our heads does not mean that just automatically means that I'm being a faithful husband.
Right.
Right? No, like the way that I am a faithful husband is by being faithful, right? And I live as a husband who is married, right? And if I'm not living faithfully, okay, sure, I can know that I'm married in my head. That does not make me living as a married person. You know what I mean? Like I'm cheating, right? And so like this is where like whenever we talk about the whole faith and works debate, they're just two sides of the same coin.
Oh no,
right?
I completely agree.
Yeah, because it's like, correct, it is not the works that save you, it is the faith that saves you. But if your faith does not have works, it's not faith that saves you. Like the whole idea is, it is not me being faithful to, it is not me not cheating on Brienne that makes me faithful. No, it is my devotion to her that makes me faithful. However, my devotion to her is what causes me to not cheat. Does that make sense? Right? So it's like, they go hand in hand, but like, yes, the faithfulness comes from the heart.
Right,
but
both.
but it's not even both. It's just like it's cause and effect. It's like the devotion comes from the heart, and a devotion that comes from the heart will necessarily change how you live.
Well, that's what I
And
mean.
if your life is not, if you're not living differently, then that devotion is not there. You know what I mean? It's like.
Well, that's what I mean when you say you need both. It's like you can't have one without the other.
Yes.
Because one without the other isn't possible.
Yeah.
Either you take both or you don't.
Yeah, and so God's over here being like, hey, you said you would be my bride, right? We were there at Mount Sinai. Y'all vowed yourself to me. We made a covenant, but you're cheating on me with like, not even just like one guy, like with every person who passes by. Like this is, you are not living like you're married. You're living like a college girl who's just going around to have a lot of fun. And that's not what we agreed to. And so, yeah.
Yeah. And then it moves on, and he kind of starts like being a little more specific about what they're actually doing. And if it wasn't already like a serious enough matter, he starts like kind of clarifying, like, don't get me wrong, it's like, it's not just building these things with everything I gave you. It's that they're not only cheating, it's that they're actually like they're killing off their kids. So when you think about like how we started the chapter off with, which was that they themselves were a defenseless child that was sitting in their own blood, with no one to pity them or take care of them, but God stepped in and took care of them. Obviously God's going to expect them to do the same thing for their kids. But he goes on to say, like, they took their sons and daughters, which they born to him, so again, like with the marriage imagery, and sacrificed them to idols to be devoured. Were your harlotry such a small matter? And so here God's kind of making the point of like it's not just that like you're cheating on me, it's that you're literally like you're killing off your kids. Like it's more serious than just these words. Like it goes beyond that. Like people are like, your kids are suffering because of your actions.
Well, and it's interesting also because you can interpret this both literally and metaphorically,
Mm-hmm.
because obviously there is a little, like, if you look at Israel's history, they were literally sacrificing their children at points, and they were literally causing them to pass through the fire to like Molech and everything. However, the rest of the passage has been metaphorical to this extent, and so you have to also say, how could this be metaphorical? Well, whenever the prophets were coming to them, they would say, if you continue in your idolatry, the future generations are going to feel the consequences of this.
Yeah.
And so, even metaphorically, as a nation, they were sacrificing their children to idols. And they were causing them to pass through the fire, because the prophets were warning them, this is where the story's headed. Mm-hmm. Right? If you do not turn from your idolatry, your children, the future generations, will be destroyed by fire.
Yeah.
And so there's both the literal, like, their literal kids were passing through fire, but also they were being heedless and just sacrificing future generations, just living in the moment as well.
Yeah, exactly. They're jeopardizing the future of the nation.
Which, that's like the terrible thing. It's like, everything's been a metaphor here, and the one thing that you wish wasn't metaphorical works on both a metaphorical and a literal level. It's like the one thing that you just wish, I hope this is a metaphor, is sacrificing babies. Yeah, that's the one where it's like,
that's the one
no,
that actually happened.
Yeah, that one
Literally.
actually occurred.
It literally happened.
Yeah.
Molech.
Yeah, it's like, the whole idea is that he's like, I'm going to paint the most vivid and disgusting image of you that I can possibly do. Most of it's a metaphor. I don't even have to turn this one to a metaphor because it's so disgusting. It's like that's bad.
Yeah, true. Besides all your abominations and harlotries, you did not remember the days of your youth, when you were naked and bare. You were swimming in your blood.
It's kind of like saying, you don't remember what I did for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I mean, it's kind of like a overused trope in movies sometimes, but it's also the idea of, like, don't forget where you came from.
Yeah.
So, like, God is kind of saying, like, again, if you're following the progression here, he was just talking about them, like, giving up their kids, and he's saying, like, don't forget that you were basically the same way too. Like, you were a defenseless kid who could have been exploited. I took care of you, but now you're exploiting your own future generation as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Move on. That you built yourself a shrine and made yourself a high place in every square. You built yourself a high place at the head of every street, and made your beauty abominable. And you spread your lights to every passerby to multiply your harlotry. So yeah, on top of everything, like, I mean, we've already mentioned it before, but it's also the fact that it's like it's become such like a public thing. Like if you're going like progressing along with the metaphor, it is like literally just this person who's like how you said, they're doing it for like the love of the game, basically. Like they're basically just like out in public, just like showing themselves off to people, and it's like, but like in such like a disgraceful way.
They're the female version of clavicular.
It's almost,
literally.
It's almost like OnlyFans nowadays.
Yeah.
I have to say.
Well, no, it really is just like
it is, except if like an OnlyFans model was giving out money for people to subscribe to her page.
Well, yeah, the idea is that they're just boasting in it. They're not even ashamed of it anymore.
Cause like even like brothels, they're not usually like super like out for display. It's usually like in like a more covered part of the city. It's like you know, back in the back alleyway type thing, to where it's like more of a secret thing, you know, because of the shame of it. To where
no, this is like New Orleans during Mardi Gras is what we're talking about right here.
Yeah,
it's
like parades of people just uncovering themselves and just not being ashamed at all.
Yeah.
And just doing things out in the open.
I guess that's why Ashram's doing this.
Say what?
It's like
the
sin and the repentance.
Yeah. But actually, the OnlyFans comparison you made actually is a pretty fitting one, just because the idea is that like with OnlyFans, girls will, you know, they'll post these pictures and stuff, but it's the expectation is that they're doing this to be paid, and they can make a lot of money from it. But in God's metaphor here, it's as if they were paying other people to look at the pictures.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, that defeats the whole purpose of what OnlyFans models are doing, right? The only reason they're doing it, well, I mean, I think part of it's probably just for the ego boost, where I can imagine some of them would do it for free. But one of the main incentives is money, right? Whereas God's like, you're not even doing it for like, if you were getting money in return, at least maybe that would make sense. But he's like, you're not getting anything in return. Like, and sure enough, whenever you look at Israel's history, like, the moment they turned to idolatry is the moment that things started going poorly for them, right? It's like, it's a direct correspondence. Like, Solomon was at the height of glory, right? Everything was going great under Solomon. He turned to idolatry. What happens the year Solomon dies? Split kingdom. And then, like, as things go on, like, if you just look at their history, it progressively gets worse and worse and worse. Like, I know that correlation doesn't always equal causation, but in this case, whenever, like, centuries earlier, God said this is exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah.
That's like, it's like, it's basically you can do the scientific method when it looks like with Israel's history, and you're like, oh yes, that correlation does equal causation, because that's exactly what God said would happen. So
this kind of like feels weird, but it's like you can even see that like even in like more modern history with like modern nations, like okay, like with like Byzantium, it's like their golden ages. It's like the best eras of Byzantium was when they had like an emperor who was like very dedicated to the church and like was very dedicated to like a lot of the spiritual practices and being devoted to God. And it's like the minute you get like an awful emperor, it's like all of a sudden it's like the history falls apart. And literally it's like, it's really funny because the minute, like when Constantinople fell in like 1453, it's like the emperor was just some like complete rabid, like completely against like the church and everything it stood for, and it's like completely devoted, and then boom, it fell. So it's like, it's just kind of interesting that even beyond Israel, it's like you can even see that with like the church. It's like they fall away from God, and then it's like, okay, and then the empire falls.
Well, it is a general truth. Like, you don't even have to be the chosen people of God, but like it is true in general that if a group of people take God's commands seriously and try to uphold his values, things do typically work out better. It's almost like God knows what he's talking about, and like it's almost like God's commands go contrary to human nature, and human nature is usually the thing that causes things to crumble. So, yeah. But, anywho, back to this. He goes through and just, like, talks about, like, the different people they played the Harlot with. Like, he's basically just listing out their, like, body count. He's just like, alright, well, Egypt, Philistines, Assyrians, Chaldea, like, he's got the receipts. He's like, you don't believe me? He's like, okay, well, you made allies with all these people, and all of them came to destroy you, right? You went down to Egypt, they enslaved you. For some reason, you still went running back to them countless times afterwards. You went to the Philistines, and they were always your enemies. You tried to make buddy-buddy with the Assyrians, and they destroyed the northern kingdom. You even tried to make buddy-buddy with the Babylonians, and they destroyed you. Or they're going to destroy you, I guess. And so the idea is, like, they keep prostituting themselves to these guys who are giving them, like, sexually transmitted diseases. Yet, they're still doing it anyways. And it's like, do you not see, like, this ain't working out for you.
Yeah.
Yet they're still doing it.
Yeah, as we're going to read in a few chapters, with the incoming threat of Babylon, the king of Israel, of Jerusalem, he does turn to Egypt for help.
Yeah.
So, again, I guess it says plague the harlot, not is playing, but that would, with the Egyptians, but I guess in a few chapters we will read that as well, where like they're still kind of like playing the harlot with them too.
And just so you know, it is already 8:45.
Okay, yeah. I was going to say, I think honestly we can move on because everything, the rest of the section, we've already kind of talked about a lot. Anything else y'all want to add before I can just read through the rest of the chapter?
I mean, basically just those final verses where he just outlines the hypocrisy of the harlotry, to where he's just like, you adulterous wife who takes strangers instead of your husband, men gives gifts to all harlots, but you give gifts to your lovers. So he just points out, like, you're not even doing harlotry in the right way. Like, you're a stupid, like, I was going to say you're a stupid whore, but that's kind of what he's saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's ironic because they're supposed to be like not like the other nations, but then here he's been calling them like a harlot, but now it's like he's calling them special, but not in a good way. Where he's like, you know what? Actually, you aren't like the other harlots out there, but not in a good way.
Yeah, because those other harlots are at least business savvy.
At least you're smart.
Yeah, you're just a stupid harlot. But it does make it more disgusting because the idea is like if they're doing this and they're not getting money out of it, then the question becomes, why are they doing it? And it literally would just be because of the love of the game. Like they like giving themselves away, and that's the scary thing.
There's like a quote from like St. John Chrysostom, because he gave tons of really long sermons and homilies on like marriage and married life, and like one of the things that like this is like a quote from it. It's I can't remember the full thing because it's really long, but it's like just like a part of it was he just said it's like he's going through a whole sermon and then like he just interrupts himself, and then he just says, oh, and a message, and it's like something he says is like a message to the married women who go out to seduce men, and he just says, you are worse than the whore, and then he follows it up by saying, at least she does it for money.
Yeah.
It's like she's trying to support her kids and all this other stuff. You're doing it for what?
Yeah, to break up a family.
Love of the game.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on. Actually, I'll read through 52, just because 53 is kind of a bit of a change. Therefore, O harlots, hear the word of Yahweh. Thus says Lord Yahweh, because your lewdness was poured out, and your nakedness uncovered through your harlotries with your lovers, and with all your abominable idols, and because of the blood of your sons which you gave to idols, therefore, behold, I will gather all your lovers with whom you took pleasure, even all those whom you loved, and all those whom you hated. So I will gather them against you from all around, and uncover your nakedness to them, that they may see all your nakedness. Thus I will judge you like women who commit adultery or shed blood are judged, and I will bring on you the blood of wrath and jealousy. I will also give you into the hands of your lovers, and they will pull down your shrines, tear down your high places, strip you of your clothing, take away your splendid jewelry, and leave you naked and bare. They will bring up an assembly against you, and they will stone you and cut you to pieces with their swords. They will burn your houses with fire, and execute judgments on you in the sight of many women. Then I will make you cease from playing the harlot, and you will also no longer give your earnings to your lovers. So I will cause my wrath against you to be at rest, and my jealousy will depart from you, and I will be quiet, and I will not be provoked any more. Because you have not remembered the days of your youth, but have enraged me by all these things, behold, I in turn will bring your way down on your own head, declares Lord Yahweh, so that you will not commit this lewdness on top of all your other abominations. Behold, everyone who quotes Proverbs will quote this proverb concerning you, saying, like mother, like daughter. You are the daughter of your mother, who loathed her husband and children. You are also the sister of your sisters, who loathed their husbands and children. Your mother was a Hittite, and your father an Amorite. Now your older sister is Samaria, who lives north of you with her daughters, and your younger sister, who lives south of you, is Sodom with her daughters. Yet you have not merely walked in their ways, or done according to their abominations, but, as if that were too little, You acted more corruptly in all your ways than they. As I live, declares Lord Yahweh, Sodom your sister and her daughters have not done as you and your daughters have done. Behold, this was the iniquity of your sister Sodom. She and her daughters had lofty pride, abundant food, and quiet ease, but she did not strengthen the hand of the afflicted and needy. Then they were haughty and committed abominations before me. So I removed them when I saw it. Furthermore, Samaria did not commit half of your sins, for you have multiplied your abominations more than they. Thus you have made your sisters appear righteous by all your abominations which you have done. Also bear your dishonor in that you have made judgment favorable for your sisters. Because of your sins in which you acted more abominably than they are more in the right than you. Yes, also be ashamed and bear your dishonor, in that you made your sisters appear righteous. We'll stop there.
Very in there, he's saying, you've acted so evil, you're making the Babylonians, the Egyptians, the nations around you seem righteous. In comparison.
Well, I guess he specifically mentions Israel and Sodom. I guess Sodom is also kind of like Edom in this case.
Study Bible, I do have some commentary where we go. So in verses 44 to 48, we broaden the title family to include the sisters Samaria and Sodom.
Yeah. But let's back up a little first because that's like towards the end of what I just read. So in the kind of the first half, like 35 through, I guess basically like through like 44, what does he say is going to happen there? Because he just talked about like how they have been like playing the harlot.
He's going to punish all of her lovers.
He's going to punish them, and then he will send her lovers to punish her.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say
that's kind of what I got.
It doesn't really say that he's going to punish the lovers, though.
No. What I'm saying is he's going to send the lovers to punish her, not necessarily punish the lovers themselves.
Well, it specifically says that he's going to gather them around and show her nakedness to them. Like, the idea is
he's basically making an example out of Jerusalem too.
Yeah. So in the imagery of like the woman's, like it's like the idea is like he's going to get her whole body count around, and then he's going to show that, like, basically lift up her skirt and show them the result, and the idea is, the implications that there's like diseases and stuff that's gonna horrify them, and they're gonna be like, oh no, what have we done? But in actual history, it would be that he's going to destroy Jerusalem and lay them waste, so that all the surrounding nations that they hoard around with would look at them and be like, like, what is the language he uses? The idea of he's gonna make them like a byword, to where like, and they're gonna like hiss and be like, like, don't want to be like them. Yeah. So it's kind of like that imagery.
Yeah. Well, if you're following like the whole extended metaphor, the idea is like this woman has been like playing the harlot in the sense like she's giving them all these things and she's trying to make herself desirable to them. Where God says like, I'm gonna show them exactly how undesirable you really are. Mm-hmm. To where like she may have been able to deceive some of these nations in trying to make herself look good on the outside by all that she adorns, but he's gonna get everyone gathered around and put on a little show and say like, no, this is the actual person that you've been like messing with.
Here's the stuff you don't see. Like, what's like the imagery of a prostitute, right? She adorns herself and all this stuff to try to attract them, but then when you engage in the actual stuff, it's probably in the darkness. Yeah. Right? Where you're not getting to see this is not the same thing at all, but like, have you ever been in like a movie theater when the lights are on?
Yeah,
it's disgusting.
It's gross.
It is absolutely disgusting. It's kind of like that, right? There are times I'm in the movie theater and I'm just like, I'm so glad the lights are off right now because like I don't want to see what it looks like when the lights are on. Mm. That's kind of like what's going on here. Yeah. But in a much more crass way. I've never visited a prostitute, so I can't talk about that experience. But I have been to a movie theater, so.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the idea. And then the other thing too is, I guess also on the kind of the same notes, again, another thing that we've been kind of exploring through this extended metaphor is that, not even just the metaphor itself, but the idea is that these nations have really nothing to offer Israel. And so, as like, and they don't really care for her. Like the idea is, this woman is seeking other people for like validation and whatever else. But the idea is like only God can provide like the validation and like the stuff that she needs. Mm-hmm. And so here God's like kind of both. He's kind of exposing both sides to each other. To where like he exposes, the harlot for who she is to these men, in the metaphor, but then also he's kind of showing the woman how much they don't actually care for her, because as he kind of says, like they basically just like gang up on her. Where it says like he reveals her, but then it says like they like strip her down and take everything. So it's kind of like after they get disgusted at who she actually is, they kind of like take back what they gave to her. Where it's like, oh, we don't want anything to do with you, so we're gonna take back everything. And so like it's kind of gone like full circle.
Well, it's not even taking back, right? They're taking whatever's left because she'd already given them some stuff.
I guess that's
right?
true.
So I guess the idea is that like it's whatever she has left, they're stripping her of.
Yeah.
I would assume.
I guess that's true. I guess because they weren't giving her the stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So and to me, this like it, again calls back to Deuteronomy 32, where he says he's going to destroy them and afflict them, and he's going to say, "Where are your gods?" Right? Like not like all those people you were offering sacrifices to. It's like there was one temple in Jerusalem, but you put a high place on every hill, and you put a shrine in every courtyard. Where are those gods? Why are they not helping you out? And the idea is like all the gods are watching, but they're not going to help. They're like, no, it's like they just want whatever's left, and
they're just
same with the other nations. Yeah.
So they take everything that she has left, but then as we saw in verse 27, he said that he has stretched out his hand and has cut off your rations, and so it's kind of like double whammy here, to where like everything that this woman had, or that Israel had, God had given to her, and she had given that all away. And so eventually God gets tired of that, and so he's not going to just keep on giving her, like at that point he just needs to give it to the other nations.
Yeah.
Because he's basically just giving her stuff for her to give to somebody else.
Yeah.
And so eventually he cuts that off, and then he basically lets them finish the job, to where they end up taking everything that she has, and it kind of goes back to like full circle, to where by the end of it says like that where's the verse? Take away your splendid jewelry and will leave you naked and bare. To where like that kind of goes back to like, what was it, like verse like 8 or something, to where like
what's how he found her in the first place.
How he found her in the first place, to where like now like in like it's almost like in like the striving to have everything, they lost everything, to where they kind of wanted to have like everything God gave them, but also they wanted their fun with the nations, what they had to offer them. But God took everything, like he withheld his blessings from them, and then the nations like took everything from them, and now they're back to nothing.
Well, they're back to the beginning, which is quite literally like, Abraham was called from the land of Babylon, and now they're back in Babylon. So it's like
that's true, yeah.
Abraham was a man without a country, like he was living in Babylon, which is not the land of Canaan, and now they are once again a people living in Babylon without a home. It's like it's basically they just hit the reset button. It's like the only difference is that now they are a mighty nation, but a mighty nation means nothing if you have no kingdom and you have no throne and you have no borders. So
it's true.
So
So I'll cause my wrath against you to be at rest, and my jealousy will depart from you. Thus I will judge you like women who commit adultery or shed blood are judged, and I will bring on you the blood of wrath and jealousy. So there he kind of like says, like, because of the blood, it's like because of the bloodshed, like they've incurred his wrath, and because of the adultery, they've incurred his jealousy, because he's the jealous God. And so, like, everything that's coming to them is like, that's like his motivations, is like the wrath and jealousy. What else in this section? Anything else here like stick out to y'all? Like in verses like in this back half of the chapter?
Basically saying that they're so bad that these other nations that do abominable things are look very righteous compared to them.
Yeah, it's like, imagine being compared to the city that God literally wiped off the face of the earth. Like, could not even find 10 righteous people within. And, like, you're worse than they are. It's like, how low can you get it?
Well, and the reason why they'd be worse is because they've received so much more. right? Like the idea is they've stooped to the same level as Sodom, but Sodom had no Bible, right? They have the Torah, they have the prophets, they have all these different things that should have stopped them. And what's even crazier is that they were acting like Sodom at the very beginning of their story, right? To where, I mean, I think we talked about this in the previous week, but Judges chapter 19, that's before there was even a kingdom, but Judges chapter 19 directly corresponds to Genesis chapter 19, to where you've got a Levite and his concubine who enter into a town, and they're going to spend the night in the courtyard, and then somebody says, no, you don't want to stay in the courtyard, you need to come stay with me. And then the Levite ends up doing what Lot never did, because if you remember in the Sodom and Gomorrah, the men of the city came to the doors and were like, let us sleep with those men. And Lot said, no, I will not let you do that. Take my daughters instead. But Lot never actually ended up throwing his daughters out there. Whereas the Levite ends up throwing his concubine out into the streets, and they basically assault her, and then the next morning he just finds her there, and we don't know if she's dead in the moment, but she's dead when he's done with her. And it's like, that was at the beginning of their story. So they were already living like Sodom at the beginning of the story. And then, centuries and centuries later, after so many more prophets, they're officially worse than Sodom. And so, if Sodom would, at this point, God's like, if I don't destroy you, I have to apologize to Sodom.
Yeah, I was trying to see here. So, based on a few verses ahead of where I just read, it seems like Sodom and is being referred to kind of as the same as Edom. Would you agree?
I wasn't in here whenever y'all read it.
Verses? Well, so a few verses ahead of where I read, it says, "As the name of your sister Sodom was not heard in your mouth at your day of lofty pride, before your wickedness was uncovered, so now you have become the reproach of the daughters of Edom and all those who are around her, the daughters of the Philistines, those all around you who despise you." It seems like in there it's kind of using it as a parallelism to where well, I guess ultimately what I'm getting at is because I thought it was interesting that specifically Sodom was mentioned here with Samaria, but I guess it makes sense if because of Edom being Jacob's brother, Esau, and there is this kind of weird thing with Edom to where they're usually considered closer than the other nations to Israel. It's almost the brother, the nation that could have been.
Yeah. Well, I guess another way to read it, I don't know if this is correct or not, but if you consider the fact that he's talking to Judah in particular, it's almost like he's going all the way around them, because Samaria was the capital of the northern kingdom, which is to the north, and then you have Sodom, which is in the Dead Sea area, which is what are you doing, dude? Okay. Sodom is the Dead Sea area, which if you're in Jerusalem, Sodom is directly to the east. And then Edom is directly to the south, and the Philistines are directly to the west.
Okay.
And so I don't know if he could still be using it synonymously there. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Because technically, where Sodom was at is the border of where Edom would be eventually. Yeah. And so it could kind of work. Well, we don't know for certain where Sodom is at. Usually people place it on the southeastern side of the Dead Sea. Okay. But I know there are some people who have actually placed it on the northern side, in which case it would not even be in Edom at all. It would be closer to where Ammon and Moab are at, which actually makes more sense because Ammon and Moab came from Lot. Yeah. But I don't know. I was just if you just were to picture it in a map, it's almost like he's working his way around Jerusalem. He says north, east, south, west.
That makes sense. It's just because those two are specific. Throughout the rest of the chapter, they're both the only two referred to as the sisters. To where he'll mention returning their captivity. The captivity is Sodom and her daughters, and the captivity is Samaria and her daughters. And through the rest of the chapter, it's the older and younger sister. To where I assumed that meant the older was Edom, and the younger was Samaria. Or I guess Sodom was the older sister, and then Samaria was maybe the younger sister.
Yeah.
But I wasn't sure.
Where's the first time it references that?
46.
Okay.
So it mentions them, and then it doesn't mention other nations. It just mentions Samaria and Sodom specifically. And then it does mention when it says the Edom and then and all who are around her. the daughters of the Philistines. So it's like the Philistines are like around Edom, but and then it goes back down to like at the end of the chapter it says like your older and your younger sister. So like it doesn't really associate sisters with like any other nations.
Okay.
So I wasn't sure on that, but
Maybe you could just go by chronological order when nations existed and make the assumption there.
yeah.
Well, the issue is that Sodom and Edom existed before Samaria would have
Mhm.
existed.
Yeah. So like Sodom, if anything, would be the older sister.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
not really that important. I just if it was the case, I just thought it was kind of curious, like
Yeah.
that Sodom that gets mentioned now, and that now they're being like compared as like an older sister. And if nothing else, like it is significant because of the significance of Sodom in the old, like in Genesis, of like what they represented, and like
Yeah.
knowing they got completely destroyed, and like in not too different a way than like Jerusalem will be destroyed.
Well, yeah, it could just be the representatives. Like, if you're a person living in Jerusalem at the time and you think of like cities that got destroyed, the two that probably come to your mind are Sodom, because that's Genesis, and then most recently Samaria,
Yeah.
like because that was just a few generations earlier. And if anything, they book in like it's cataclysmic judgment at the beginning of Israel's history, and then like cataclysmic judgment in their most recent contemporary history. And so
Yeah.
I'll give you that too.
Yeah, and either way, like obviously, sister in this case doesn't have to be like familial. It could just be like you act like them, and so like they're your sisters.
Yeah.
But
Or just because the whole metaphor has been God being like also like the adopted father, or even like the even if you advance it to like the marriage imagery, that means Samaria, and then if Sodom is being equated to Edom here, it's almost like the northern kingdom of Israel and then the land of Edom is like God's in-laws.
yeah,
To where, and you see that with Edom for sure, where like God has like a weird relationship with them, to where it's like
yeah, that's why I say like
they're not descended from Jacob, they're descended from Esau, but he always treats them as like special. And then with the northern kingdom, they are actually part of like the people of Israel, but they're not part of the royal line, right? So it's like it's not descended from David, but so you can see how that makes sense.
because even the accusation against Sodom is basically his usual accusation against Edom, to where he talks about they had lofty pride, abundant food, and quiet ease, but they did not strengthen the hand of the afflicted and needy. If I recall in Jeremiah, that was like the primary thing he had against Edom, was that they had been given a lot by God, but they didn't use it.
Well, and that's the main thing in Obadiah too.
Yeah.
I mean, Obadiah is one chapter long, so it's the only thing in Obadiah.
I forgot that Obadiah is against Edom.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I could see that as well. But yeah, I thought it was interesting.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously the main thing here is that like we know what Sodom did, and Israel is so much worse, to where they're like he said, like by the end of this, like they make like Israel, like Jerusalem has made Samaria and Sodom like look righteous.
Yeah.
Which is bad. Is there anything else I wanted to comment on that section before I can read through the end of the chapter?
Go for it.
Alright. Go ahead and wrap this bad boy up. Nevertheless, I will return their captivity, the captivity of Sodom and her daughters, the captivity of Samaria and her daughters, and along with them your own captivity, in order that you may bear your dishonor and feel dishonor for all that you have done, and you become a comfort to them. Your sisters, Sodom with her daughters and Samaria with her daughters, will return to their former state, and you with your daughters will also return to your former state. As the name of your sister Sodom was not heard in your mouth in your day of lofty pride, before your wickedness was uncovered, so now you have become the reproach of the daughters of Edom, and all of those who are around her, the daughters of the Philistines, those all around you who despise you. You have borne the penalty of your lewdness and abominations, declares Yahweh. For thus says Lord Yahweh, I will also do with you as you have done. You have despised the oath by breaking the covenant. Nevertheless, I myself will remember my covenant with you in the days of your youth, and I will establish an everlasting covenant with you. Then you will remember your ways and feel dishonor when you receive your sisters, both your older and your younger, and I will give them to you as daughters, but not because of your covenant. Thus I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall know that I am Yahweh. so that you may remember and be ashamed, and never open your mouth any more because of your dishonor, when I have atoned for you for all that you have done, declares Lord Yahweh.
I'm very intrigued right now.
Yeah, the whole section is...
Well, the weird thing is that in verse 57, in Hebrew, instead of Edom, it says Aram.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No, mine in the Septuagint it got translated as Syria.
Yeah, that's what Aram is. Aram is Syria.
Aram, yeah.
So now I'm trying to figure out why it even says Edom at all. Because I was trying to look to see if like the spelling for Sodom and Edom were like close.
Yeah.
Because they would both end with like the
Dom.
Yeah.
I was wondering the same thing too.
Like I looked it up to fact check it, but for some reason, yeah. So apparently there are many manuscripts that say this. I don't know. That's weird. So the Septuagint says Syria,
Yeah.
and then most manuscripts say Aram, but for some reason they chose the manuscripts to say Edom. That's worth looking into.
Yeah.
So there's some sort of discrepancy there. I guess Edom does make more sense given what's like, because like I guess Syria wouldn't make as much sense in the context because they're further removed from Judah and they don't have that familial relationship that Edom has.
Yeah.
So I guess it makes sense that would be the earlier one. I just want to know how it like. I just want to know the manuscript tradition and like how that would have ever gotten altered.
Yeah.
Because it would suggest that it was already altered by the time the Septuagint was translated.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Either that or
interesting.
the Septuagint one's original, in which case, I don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was getting distracted by probably stuff that's not necessary to get distracted by. But
No, you're good. Yeah, I thought this section was interesting to me because even though there is the mention of like the everlasting covenant, like I guess what stuck out to me was like just the constant like mention of like even when it says like I will establish my covenant with you, it's almost like it almost pans it like almost negative to where it's like I will establish my covenant and do all these good things so that you will be ashamed. And I guess I kind of already have a kind of an answer for this, but like, what do y'all think is going on in this section here?
So my way of looking at it, like, to me, it just sounds like he's describing repentance.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not repentance in the way that modern Christians are comfortable with.
Yeah.
Because our whole thing is like we just like I don't know, every single Christian song nowadays says like no more guilt, no more shame. Like
and here it's like you will recognize your guilt.
Yeah.
Because of that you will come
well,
back to me.
that's a necessary part of repentance. Like you should feel guilty. You should feel ashamed. Like again, if you linger in that shame and you like make that your entire personality, well then yeah, you're not resting in the grace of God. But yeah, no, you should like I don't know, like if a woman gets caught cheating on her husband 1,000,000 times and he accepts her back, she should feel shame. And she should recognize that was a shameful thing she did. If she just comes back and acts like nothing bad ever happened, like, there's a difference. Like, it's one thing if he acts like something bad never happened, right? Because that's just him being forgiving. If she acts like something bad never happened, that almost makes it seem like she felt entitled for him to take her back, right? And so to me, what it seems like he's describing here is just repentance. He says, I'm going to call you back, and I'm going to bring you back to me because of my covenant, because I'm a faithful husband, and I'm not giving you up, and you're going to feel ashamed. And that's a good thing. It's like, it sounds harsh, but she's been cheating on him with 1,000,000 guys. It's a harsh judgment. Like, yeah, like you should, like, this is, like, it's not like you just committed, like, one little sin. It's like, ooh, like, you didn't just steal a lollipop. Like, you did something severely bad, and you should feel bad about that. If you don't feel bad about that, then you're a psychopath. And I don't know, that's something that I get very frustrated by, like, in modern church culture, where it's like, hey, like, I don't know, even whenever you have, like, I don't know, two Christians that are talking about, like if one person's, like, confessing to another person, being like, hey, man, like, I really struggled with this today. Like, there's, like, this Christian tendency to just be like, hey, it's all right, man. You're washed in the blood of Jesus. It's like, that is true, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't feel bad about it.
Right.
Like, it's, like, because if you love Jesus, it should grieve you that you've, like, cheated on him. You know, it's like that your sin should grieve you. And, like, I've caught myself, like, there are times like we should boldly approach the throne of grace, and we should be like so grateful for His forgiveness. But also like, if you're ever not feeling grieved over your sin, that's a problem, right? Because that means that you're like, I don't know, that's like the husband who goes and cheats on his wife and feels no guilt about it. Like, no, you should feel grieved about it. And if you don't, that means that your heart has gotten so hardened that it doesn't even bother you anymore. And that's a problem.
It's unrepentance.
Yeah.
I mean, like, the early church, like a lot of early Christians, like even pre-Nicaea, it's like a lot of their focus on repentance was like the tear aspect, like the tears, the guilt, the shame.
Yeah.
Because like even though it's like, oh, that's a bad thing to them, it's like, no, that's like kind of the best part, because that's what realigns you and that's what gets you. Because if sinning is missing the mark, well, the best way to get back on the straight, the best way to get back on track is the shame and the guilt that you feel, the tears, because that moment, that emotion, that's gonna kind of kick it into high gear.
Yeah, and there is a truth in the sense of like, if you, like, again, because there are some people who go too far with it and like they can't move on past it.
Oh yeah.
And the issue there is that you're not actually, like, you're still trusting in yourself, which is just as sinful, because rather than accepting God's forgiveness and grace, you're just being, oh, poor beautiful me, I'm a sinner. It's like, yes, congratulations, you're a sinner, move on. It's like, you should feel bad about it, but also like, you should let God forgive you. Whereas like, some people, like, they're like, oh, you need to forgive yourself. You don't need to forgive yourself. You should feel bad about it, but God has forgiven you and you move on. But the verse that I was thinking of real quick, it's in James. Where is that verse where he just says like, wail you sinners?
Is it in 3?
Yeah. Draw near to God and He will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. Be miserable and mourn and cry. Let your laughter be turned to mourning and your joy to gloom.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm like, yes.
It's a good thing.
Like, yeah, like, but like, there's a tendency within like modern Christian circles to be like, oh, well, James doesn't mean that. Yes, he does.
He did.
No, he means it. Like, it's like, yes, like, let your joy be turned to gloom. There are times where you should not be feeling joyful right now. And it's not because Christ's joy is insufficient. It's because you have sinned against Him and you need to repent. And so, that's my long-winded explanation for, I think, what's going on there. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, because like you mentioned like the opposite extreme of like how people will talk like really, really like, like the whole pity party thing, and it's like, oh, it's like, it's so bad, and it's like, well, you should feel guilt, and it's like on the opposite extreme, it's like the funny thing is like a lot of early Christians, and it's like even like in modern church teaching, they're like, oh yeah, that's a form of pride.
Well, no, it is.
That's a form of pride. There's two types of pride. There's the pride as in ego, and then there's pride as in despair. Yeah,
well, there's the pride where it says you can do no wrong, and then there's the pride which almost like draws attention to itself on like, look at how righteous I am because of how upset I am about sin. And it's like, you're still making it about yourself. Like, the whole idea is get back to God. And so you have to recognize you've done a bad thing. You should feel guilty over that. But you should also recognize how amazing and beautiful and loving God is and rest in His grace. And so it's like, you should be grieved over it, but also like make it about getting to Him, not about beating yourself up. And there's got to be both of those. But yeah, so I mean, that was mainly my explanation for like the final 4 verses, I guess. But there were other verses there too to talk about. Mm-hmm. I'll stop talking for a second or two to give other people a chance to talk. Looks like you're pulling up some verses. What you got?
I was just trying to find one single. It wasn't even that important, but I was trying to find just this one verse. Just because. So it seems to me like at this point the metaphor, like the extended metaphor, has made a bit of a shift. And y'all may have just been talking about this while I was looking for the verses, but it seems to me like part of what's going on here is that if you think of it like 3 siblings, of the 3, 2 have already been like destroyed, right? To where they both did bad things and they didn't get away with it. But the 3rd sibling, they're still getting away with doing much worse. Mm-hmm. But like they're being very prideful. Like it's like they think that they can escape the judgment, that the fate that befell the 2 siblings, mm-hmm. the 2 sisters. And if you think about like how these 2 sisters would feel, like how he says, before your wickedness was uncovered, so now you have become the reproach of the daughters of Edom and of all those who are around her, those all around you who despise you. And the idea is like Jerusalem's like their pride has earned the despisement of of Israel like Northern Kingdom and also of Edom. Like they're two like siblings who they got punished for way less than they did. And so the idea is like Jerusalem thought that they were kind of exempt from God's punishments for doing the same things that their siblings did, so they kind of got like despised for it. But then God says that not only are they not going to escape that judgment, but also even though he's going to forgive Judah in the future, the siblings are also not going to, like, they're almost like they're not going to be exempt from the forgiveness as well. To where the idea is, like in verse 54, it says, in order that you may bear your dishonor and feel dishonor for all that you have done when you become a comfort to them. So the idea is like, whenever he brings back Edom and when he brings back Samaria/Israel, like, they're gonna feel ashamed for feeling the way they did, because like they're gonna have to be like whenever they're gonna have to be there for their siblings that they kind of like disregarded it.
So just one thing I'm still just kind of struggling with: how is it that you're coming to the conclusion that Sodom and Edom are being treated as the same? Because I'm still just trying to figure out.
Yeah, that's true.
Because to me, like verses 56 and 57, I can interpret those in a way where they're not the same. I'm just trying to get on the same page.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I was still thinking.
Well, no, but I'm saying like what's causing you to think that?
Yeah, well, I don't know for sure, but it does seem like part of what I was trying to find earlier was like there was also this I think it's like in Jeremiah, it's like Edom is one of the only other nations where like God says that he is going to like return their riches back to them, and it seems like the idea is like Edom is going to kind of be like restored back to like their former states.
But Edom, the only time they're mentioned is in verse 57, correct?
They might be, yeah. So that's why I say it may not be the same there.
Well, mainly because I was trying to figure out because to me it seems like Sodom and Samaria are being treated like the siblings, because specifically verse 56 it says, "As your sister Sodom was not heard in your mouth in the day of your lofty pride." Like he's basically saying, whenever Jerusalem was at its height, so like the glory days of King David, he's saying like Sodom was forgotten in the past, right? Like she was destroyed so severely that they were just like a bygone memory, right? And he says, before your wickedness was uncovered, so now you have become the reproach of the daughters of Edom. So it seems like Edom is like still existing at the time, you know what I mean? To where he's like saying like, just like Sodom, like you didn't even have Sodom in your mind because they had been destroyed so long before. Well, in the same way, you currently, as I'm condemning you, you're a byword to the current like people of Edom.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, so that's why I was just like,
I can see that.
I was trying to figure out if there was like another place where you were connecting Sodom and Edom together. Just because I was trying to view it from that perspective.
Yeah, no, I gotcha. Well, they're usually in a place to make that connection, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, but and then there's the whole thing that it might say Aram there, which is just also weird. But
yeah, that's true. That's true.
But so it seems like the message overall from the whole thing is just they have broken the covenant a million times, yet in spite of all that, God is not going to break his covenant. Like, which again, it just drives me nuts. Like, even to this day, I see Christians getting online being like, "Oh yeah, well, the God of the Old Testament's kind of a jerk, but the God of the New Testament, he's great." And I'm like it drives me nuts because it's even Christians saying that, and I'm like, it's like people they're not literate, and I hate that. That sounds like so just like cynical and mean, but it's true, because it's like, yes, he's being very harsh here. But have you looked at their history? It's a needed message. Like, but I guess we also live in a culture where like nowadays they say like you're not supposed to like spank your kids. So like people I guess people just got very soft. But it's like, well, no, like this was a needed message. But even at the end of the message, God says, "But I'm not abandoning you." He says, "I just need to get you to a certain point where you realize that it's not good to cheat on your husband." And I'm like, I feel like that's a good message, right? Like if I don't know. Like, I guess we also live in a world where, like, people go watch Hallmark movies, which, like, the whole premise of it is that, like, there's a person in a relationship who's, like, gonna go fall in love with somebody else and we celebrate it. So, like, I guess we've just made it to where we don't view cheating as a bad thing, but, like, the message of this chapter is a good thing. It's like, hey, I am your husband, you gave yourself to me, you've been sleeping around with 1 million people, and I could divorce you, but instead, if you just come back to me and feel like bad about it, like, I'm still willing to be married to you. Like, that is, by and large, that's a really positive message. Like, that is I mean, he spends like 1 million verses being like, you suck, you suck, you suck, and then at the very end he says, but I still love you, and I just want you back. It's like how can you say that the God of the Old Testament is a jerk? It's like, no, this is very gracious. He's just being very harsh because it's necessary.
Yeah. So the whole thing with like, oh, the God of the Old Testament is mean, the God of the New Testament is nice and merciful. It's like it almost like it's always very weird to me because it implies like an inherent change.
Yes.
It's like okay, there's two possibilities when you say that. Number one, it's a very Gnostic idea that it's like the God of the Old Testament and the New Testament, two separate gods.
Yeah, it's like
right?
Marcion.
Yeah, like Marcionism, and then like the other is like there's a change in God's character, which is like just completely contradictory to the whole thing, where it's like this is the same God that said I am the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and this is the same God that is outside of time and eternal. It's like there is no change.
Yeah,
he just is.
Yeah, it really does get on my nerves too, because like I read a lot of books.
Yeah,
and so as a result, I keep up with like all the YouTube, like booktubers on YouTube and stuff.
Yeah.
And some of them like they've gotten like it's been weird. Like there's been like a movement of like secular booktubers like starting to read the Bible more. And I'm like, this is interesting. And they're just like reading it for its literary value. But there have been so many of them that I've heard who they're like, oh yeah, man, the old like they'll say the whole, oh yeah, the Old Testament God, he deserves his reputation because he's kind of a jerk, and the New Testament God's a God of grace. And they're like, I love if it was just the New Testament, I'd love it. And I'm like it made me just not want to listen to the rest of their videos because I'm like, oh, so you have like no literary comprehension whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like, do you show the same like treatment to your other books? Because like there's times where I've read a book because they recommended it, but I'm like, you obviously aren't even reading the books because like if you're actually just comprehending what's going on here, God is very, very gracious here. And then you go to the New Testament and like pretty much the whole reason why the people, like the Jewish people, crucified Jesus is because he was constantly getting onto them for their sin. Like, if Jesus had just shown up to them and been like, hey guys, y'all are doing a great job, they would have just embraced him, right? Like I know that like yes, he was condemned for like asserting he was God, but there were some Jewish people who were even open to that idea, right? The reason they rejected him is because not only did he claim to be God, but he claimed to be unhappy with them. And if he had said that he was like happy with them, they would have been like, oh sweet, all right, you're God. But it was specifically because he said, woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites. And he shows up and he's flipping tables in the temple and, you know, he's like eating with sinners and they're like, why are you doing that? And he's like, have you not read the scriptures? And like, Jesus, he's doing the same things that God did in the Old Testament.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh man, if only God was more like Jesus. I'm like, no, they're the same. Like, it's like, yes, he's a God of forgiveness and he's a God of wrath. And it's the same thing. Like, it just makes me so upset because they come up with this like whole like false dichotomy, and it just shows me it's like I think that people's attention spans are just too short and they can't focus.
Scale is different.
Well, I think so.
We're always focusing on like Jesus was wrathful in a very personal way towards like a specific group of people, whereas like the scale of God's wrath is that he's, you know, destroying entire nations.
Well, and I think it fits the narrative nowadays because Jesus, he's wrathful against like the you know, the people in power. Whereas the thing is that's who God's mad at in the Old Testament as well. he's mainly getting on to people and stuff. Yeah. But yeah, I think it probably is just a scaling thing because the Bible is like 70% Old Testament, and like actually it's probably more like 80% Old Testament, and so it's probably like, you know, you like I understand why that reputation arises, but it's like if you actually just read it, you can't come out with the conclusion that God's a jerk. Like, he is so good. Like honestly, even if those final 4 verses weren't in that chapter, he would still be good. Because everything he's saying, it's not like he's like making false accusations. Like, everything he's saying is 100% true. They made a covenant with him at Sinai, and they have broken it every single day of their lives. Yeah. Like, that's just a valid statement. He's not being a jerk, he's simply proving a point. But then he offers them forgiveness at the end. And honestly, he doesn't even offer them just forgiveness. He says that he's going to stick with them no matter what. He said, but I made an everlasting covenant. And so he's like, I'm like, whether you like it or not, I'm not divorcing you. Like, he's way too good. And it just drives me nuts whenever, like, this is like whenever, like, like in the Psalms was like zeal for your house consumes me. That's how I feel whenever people start like being a jerk to the Old Testament God. I'm like, it's the same God. Like, if you don't like him, leave. I guess I don't know. Just
Yeah.
You have free will. You're free to do your own thing.
I think that's single-handedly why I have single hair. Thin hair. It's just getting so stressed out about people talking bad about God in the Old Testament because I'm an Old Testament guy. I'm like, anyways.
All right. Anyone else have anything else they want to say before we close out? All right. Does someone want to pray us out? Anybody?
I will. That's fine.
Okay.
Lord, I thank you for allowing us to go through your word tonight. I thank you for Sean and his willingness to lead us. I pray that as we continue to just hang out afterwards, that our conversations will be glorifying to you, that we will have a good time, and that as we depart from here today, we'll be zealous for your glory and eager to go out and live in a manner that is pleasing to you. And I pray that we will learn from Israel and Judah's failure, and that we will humble ourselves and fall down before you and cry out and beg you to help us live more faithfully. We thank you for your son. We thank you for everything that you have done, you are doing, and you will do. And we pray that you will make us part of the solution that this world so desperately needs. We love you, God. We praise you. In your name we pray. Amen.